Good evening. Good evening. I'd like to call, first of all, welcome. We have a good turnout tonight. Thanks for showing up. I'd like to call to order the meeting for the Parks and Recreation meeting for Tuesday, September 2nd at 5:30 p.m. And may I have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Lyman. Vice Chairperson Long. Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Commissioner Cassioppa.
Here.
Commissioner Coburn. Commissioner Curtis. Commissioner Glenn. Commissioner Kiever.
Here.
Commissioner McKenna.
Here.
Quorum's present.
First of all, do we have any public comments? Anybody from the public that has anything they'd like to discuss before we get going here? No? Possible action on approval of minutes. I actually just had one, so I guess I'll just start it off. Let's see, I believe it's page 2. There's a statement speaking of the sheriff's night out, and at the end of the, let's see, it's the time of 5:33:10 essentially. About 5:30 p.m. there was cancellation was detrimental to save the park from much damage, and I believe that detrimental maybe could be replaced by essential. Yeah. So that's the only thing I picked up on. Anybody else have anything? So with the exception of just updating detrimental to say essential, I think we could approve the minutes.
So moved. I'll second.
All in motion? All in motion say aye.
Okay.
All right. We have approved minutes for, that was, oh, I didn't say what they were. That was for the August meeting, from the minutes from the August meeting. So do we have any modifications to the agenda?
Staff has no modifications.
All right, we'll move on. Moving on to item 3A, is the discussion regarding the update of the NV 150 fair. Is Marina Works and Roger Mollendorf. Welcome, Marina.
Yeah, Marina Works, our deputy city manager, is here, and she's going to give you an update on the NV 150 fair. Before she does that, though, I guess I'd like to give you a little bit of some comments from a park and recreation perspective. Our feeling was that the fair seemed to be a complete success, that it was very well attended. It provided really a nice diversity of entertainment and activities for all sectors of our community, everywhere from adults to families and everybody else involved. Some of the entertainment that was provided were musical concerts, carnival, rodeo, livestock auction. The grand opening with the Governor Sandoval and Mayor Curl was really a nice way to kick the fair off. And then probably one of the things that we were most concerned about, I know that Marina probably had a lot of sleepless nights over, was the shuttle and the lack of parking in the area. But after some initial confusion, I think that was turned out to be a real asset, and every report I heard that it was very convenient, it was efficient, and it was even kind of enjoyable to catch a shuttle at the Fandango and bring it over to Fuji Park for the fair. And then I guess maybe selfishly from a park and recreation standpoint, we also benefited from a lot of the improvements that happened down at Fuji Park to accommodate the fair. Including pathway lighting along Clear Creek, and a new animal wash rack near the dog park, a new picnic pavilion on the east end of the fairgrounds. So, from our standpoint, it was a very successful event, and I want to congratulate Marina and all the people that worked on the fair, and I think it went really well. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marina.
All right. Well, for the record, Marina Works Deputy City Manager, and I have with me today Susan Taylor, our fair manager. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to come tell you how the fair went. I think it was amazing, honestly. I know that, speaking of the shuttle, I grabbed Vern and I said, come on, come with me, let's give it a try. And so we did round trip from the fair to the Fandango and back, and it was smooth, easy. the bus driver was a kick. So I think it worked out pretty well. So I'm going to give you a brief update. I don't have a lot of the final numbers and whatnot, and that will be presented to the Board of Supervisors on September 18th. And so that's when the more complete report will come, and I'd be happy if this commission would so like to report after that if you feel you need it. But what I can tell you is we didn't have a gate fee. As you know, Fuji Park is, number one, not conducive to having a gate fee. There's too many entry points on it, and it's not well confined with fencing all the way around. And also, it was an effort to really provide a venue for families and not have the restriction of having a gate fee that could inhibit some, especially families with lots of children, from going and especially attending multiple days. So we don't have an exact number of attendants, but we can tell from shuttle, and if you were by the fair at all, you know that people parked absolutely everywhere, which we knew would happen. So we're guessing that over the event, we had approximately 21,000 attendees. We think that's pretty phenomenal for Carson City and for a first-time event. We did have from the Western Fair Association, which we joined last year as a member to help promote the fair and to get ideas on how do you do a fair. And the executive director came. I was very pleased and impressed. He came on Thursday, I believe it was, and said that he came probably mid-afternoon. And he was, he came, and I know he spent a lot of time with the parks guys, I believe with Scott and probably Vern as well. But he hunted me down at some point and talked with me, and he gave multiple comments about the fair. And he said for a first-time event, for what he saw, he thought it was going to be a huge success. And he wanted me to pass on the word that don't expect, for example, to make a lot of money or that this is going to take off. It's going to take a few years to build. But he felt that what he saw on Thursday was tremendous. And he said to remember, too, that your biggest attendance is Friday and Saturday, which we absolutely did see. We saw a huge increase of attendance on Friday and Saturday. So it was good. I very much appreciated him coming over and taking the time to even bother with our fair, and I was very impressed with that. And he certainly said that if we are going to continue next year, he wants to be sure to extend the invitation that the Western Fairs Association has an annual conference, and this year they usually swap between Reno and Southern California, and this coming year in January it is in Reno. And he said that as many of our supervisors and policymakers in Carson City that want to attend, he's going to make us a great deal. So I'm excited for that. If we continue the fair, I think it would be a great opportunity to attend. So we had, as you know, we had a livestock portion of the fair. I believe, again, for first year, we did really well. Those livestock barns were packed. We had, from the kids, we got a lot of feedback, and from the parents of the kids, that people were just so happy to come see the animals. They were so impressed, and the kids love showing off their animals, so it's a really good venue for the kids to come and talk and learn about them. And so I know I've been a 4-H leader for quite a few years in town, and hearing from my club, they were just really excited for the opportunity to share their animals. And if you went through there again at all, they were busy the entire time. There was never a time it was without the public coming through. So we had entries on livestock. We had 567. Now some of those would be repeats, as far as one kid might have been in 2 or 3 classes, so you're going to see a repeat with that. But that still is pretty good number. And then we had, as you know, a livestock auction, and we had 36 different kids go through the auction. So we were pretty happy with that. As far as entries for the fair total, we had 1,028. That included all the things within the exhibit hall, as well as the horse entries and the livestock entries. And then we had 48 commercial vendors, and then certainly we had the carnival and the other activities that went on. We got, as you know, we didn't have the gate fee. I think that worked out really, really well for us. We did have people repeat. We had repeat attendees come, even as many as 3 days and 4 days. So we were very pleased with that. And I think overall from our vendors, we had really good feedback. I would say most of our vendors, with few exceptions, number one, wanted to come back, and number two, said they were highly pleased with the turnout. So I have really no complaints. I think it showed us some areas that we could improve around there. We realize that if we are going to have paid events at Fuji Park, for example, around the arena, it's a hard area to control. It's not as well gated or fenced as you would think, and we've got very good control on that north side. We do not have good control around on the west side at all. So we realize some areas that definitely can use improvement. So for example, Comstock Cowboys, that was a paid event Friday night, but that whole west side was open so anybody could kind of just walk up there and attend the event. So if you're going to have paid events, you got to, there's some of those types of things you need to look at. Parking, as was mentioned earlier, that shuttle Fandango was awesome. They worked with us really well. I think, obviously, from the numbers that we had ride the shuttle buses, which was about, if I'm going a little bit off memory, I didn't write it down, but a little under 10,000 did the Jack buses, and I think it was, and I just got another email, how many did the? 3,500 did, and we had an Amador bus line. So that was the numbers they took, and I didn't hear any complaints at all from either Fandango side or the people that actually took advantage of it. I think some of those that parked along the streets would honestly have been happier if they'd taken the shuttle. I think they'd have found it a little more relaxing. So with that, I'm going to let Susan just add on a little bit to it.
Okay, and my comments, like I mentioned the first meeting after fair, was thank you to the Parks Department. Those guys were amazing to work with. Anything we needed, they were there for us. One phone call and it was done, and we couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you, thank you. Like I said, great event, positive feedback. In fact, Merle Haggard's sound guy just called, wants to come back and do sound again. And so people want to come back. Anybody that was there. We're working on it.
As we speak.
As we speak, yes. So anyway, yeah, super positive feedback. The community's been great in support, and I have to say this is one of the best supported fairs by the parks and the community and everybody involved that I've worked with. So thank you to everybody.
And, and just tagging on to that, Susan did a great job. She's an experienced fair manager from California, and I know we don't like to always hear that, but she really has been a good California person.
I was at Nevada State Fair.
Yeah. And I honestly, I needed that experience. We all did, and I use that as a general we, not me individually. But when I've been, like I said, I've been involved as 4-H leader for a long, long time, but never on this end of a fair, and all the details, oh my gosh, there were so many details, and what she said about the Parks Department was huge. We couldn't have done it without them, and we all learned from this, and we all realized all the details we weren't maybe really thinking about ahead of time, and how much work, and I can tell you from the 2 weeks before the fair especially, Susan brought her own crew in, and oh my gosh, I mean, I would go over there to the exhibit hall, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I go, come on guys, go back to your room, you got to go get some rest. I mean, we haven't even started fair yet, and I don't want to burn you out, but they were there till probably 10, 11, midnight every night for 2 weeks prior, back there at 6 a.m. I mean, you wouldn't believe the hours, but they did it honestly with a cheerful heart, and because that's what they love to do. So I think with that, like I said, I'll be giving a more complete report with finances to the Board of Supervisors. It costs money to do it. I'm not going to lie. We cost a lot of money to do it, but I think for a first-year event, we also had amazing sponsorships. We had Douglas County chip in. We had individual sponsors chip in. The Nevada Junior Livestock Show Board loaned us so many between livestock panels and rabbit cages, and we had a lot of support. We had a lot of community support. We had a good amount of donations, and I think it was, and I know that one day I dragged Susan, who, believe it or not, doesn't ride rides, and I said, all I want to do is go on the Ferris wheel because you just have to see this. And once she kind of got over her fear and she looked around, it was an amazing sight. And in fact, just today, I was made aware of a letter to the editor that went in the Reno Gazette-Journal about saying how perfect this was, the venue, how nice it was, and how the size was right. Everyone loved the park. I mean, they couldn't believe that they could have this kind of a venue in a park setting, and I think it was highly attractive. I venture to say a lot of people rediscovered Fuji Park, that they went out there and they said, this is beautiful out here. We kind of forget because we don't go out there, and I think we're all also used to carnivals. I know a lot of people remember the old State Fair and the carnival being on the asphalt, so I couldn't tell you how many comments came to me about how nice it was to have a carnival on grass. It was that lighted area that was done as an improvement to Fuji. If you didn't get a chance to see it at night, it's beautiful. And what a huge improvement to go alongside that creek, and those lights just illuminate. It was just a beautiful setting. I don't know what else to say. It was absolutely gorgeous. So I think with that, unless you have any particular questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Commissioner McKenna.
My question has to do with the next one. When we decide to do this again, when do we have to get started? Do we have another month to wait, or should we have been started already?
I'm going to start, and Susan will tag on. The sooner the better. This takes, the details that go in and lining people up. We were already some things we couldn't get for this fair because we were too far behind. People line up well more than, in fact, we already had to block Fuji Park because, as you probably know from sitting on this commission, your parks stay booked. And we already had to book Fuji in anticipation. So, and do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I've already started. If we do get the go-ahead, I already have people tentatively lined up, and we started the week after fair. So.
When do you need to go ahead? October, December,
I'm hoping
next
we
year?
get it. I'm hoping we get it at the 18th board meeting, honestly, because it just takes so long to plan.
Commissioner Kiever.
I have a question. Obviously, we're not going to call it the NV 150 Fair next year. What are we going to call it? And if we go with State Fair, do we need legislative approval to use that name?
Good question. We've tossed around ideas. I think the name is definitely open we've tossed around just Nevada Fair. The actually State Fair, I don't believe we have to have legislative approval. Somebody had applied, though, however, to already take that name, even though I know their website went defunct, so I don't know that they're going to continue with it. But I'm not sure that, I don't know. I think that would have to be part of input on what should we name it. Nevada Fair has popped up several times.
Well, I know a lot of people in my workplace call it the State Fair, and they're just taking it as a matter of course. That's what we're going to continue and call it, so.
Exactly, and that I think is whatever it would be at the pleasure of the board on how they wanted to go forward, and if they wanted to toss it back for ideas, if they want to add state in it. I know that Pete Livermore was a little bit involved with the fair effort, and now I know that he's not going to be our assemblyman after the first of the year, but or I guess after November, actually. But I know that he was going to take something forward to designate the Capitol as the State Fair site. So I think that's still open, and I'm not sure I have a good direct answer on how it would be.
Commissioner Cacioppo.
I'm just curious, for our needs this year, it went really well. As we look into the future, when do we start experiencing growing pains? I mean, we know the site's limited. We talked about that a while ago. And if we do grow this, have we looked into any other locations for it yet?
We have not looked into other locations. I think we do have a little ways to grow out of Fuji if we continue with off-site parking. And I have heard too that you got to expect these things, I guess, like anything new, to take some time to grow. But no, because what are you going to do? Fuji Park, it is our fairgrounds. To do something different right now certainly is going to not come without a lot of money. You're going to relocate the fairgrounds. You're going to rebuild something new. And I think that's probably something that's going to have to be incrementally taken.
Commissioner Curtis.
Yeah, I spent several hours there volunteering, and I just had a blast. It was just what you're portraying, what's coming out. It was just a great time, and everybody, John and I personed the information booth for hours on end. There isn't much I don't know about John now. But anyway, people would come up and just comment, we weren't seeking anything, but they wanted to tell us how much they enjoyed it, especially those from Reno, which, I think means a lot. So I think it's a success. And even if it just stays the size it is, although, one of the things we could do, that shuttle system seemed to work really well. I mean, if there were other venues around town, try shuttling, doing that kind of thing. But anyway, I think it's great. I enjoyed it. Oh, and I must mention, though, it was mentioned in the staff report, but I got a phone call from a lady who was upset because she took her dogs out there to the dog park and found pigs. And she doesn't live in the area, so she didn't see the notices in the newspaper. And so she was a bit irate because she says she was involved in, get instrumental in getting that park going and this kind of thing, and it wasn't meant to be used for that kind of thing. And I said, I don't think we ever established. And for such a short period of time, I don't see any problem with it, but just, to clarify, maybe if we're talking about dog parks in this master plan or something, we should just clarify that, it may be closed down for one reason or another. It's not a permanent 100%.
You made a really good point, and a couple of things I want to comment on what you made. And as far as the master plan, I'm hoping that Parks and Rec would be, and the Parks Department, willing to kind of relook a little bit at Fuji. I think the fair showed that we can do something a little bit different with it. I'd like to just look at what we have there for master plan. And then, and I agree with you, helping to define that. And I want to make the thing about your comments, because being in the city manager's office, when we do hear comments, honestly, they're always negative about things. And that's okay. I mean, because it's usually what kind of gets people coming and comes out to meetings and that kind of thing. This is the first thing I know I've been involved with that I voluntarily, numerous times, got positive comments. And numerous positive comments. I mean, we even got thank you notes afterwards. We had letters come to us, and that's been my first experience, that with all that positive coming forward, it seems like people are much more readily to come forward when they have something they're upset about, and that's okay. But it was just really nice to get the positive comments about the fair.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for all the work that you did do. Commissioner Kiever.
One last comment. I would just like to, on behalf of the commission, thank you ladies for your hard work and thank the Park and Rec staff. The fair was a great asset to the community, and like you, I've heard nothing but good and positive comments on it. So thank everybody for your hard work in making it a success.
No, absolutely. You guys pulled it together pretty dang quick. I don't even think it was a year ago when people came and had an idea. It's the fastest thing I've seen happen. So I look forward to again next year. I guess one question in my mind is who is going to head it up? Marina, are you going to take that on again, or who is that the question still out there?
That's a great question. I think it is still out there. I feel again very fortunate to have gotten Susan, and the comment about doing it fast. Susan came with a lot of experience, and I think we got her under contract around December, January, and I was panicked. And I'm like, we can't do this. What are we going to do? And she's like, we're going to do it. She goes, I've done this faster, believe it or not, in the past. She says, we'll make it. But my hope would be that we can continue on. I'd like to continue on the contract that we have and go forward, so we'll see what the board does.
Sounds good. Thank you. And could I get you both just to print your name on the sign-in sheet? Thank you.
Forget public comment.
Public comments.
For the record, C.K. Bailey. I had the pleasure of being at the NV 150 fair, and I was able to tie little animals, not to themselves or to anything else, little flies, and it was inside the exhibit hall. And I met people from all over the state of California, all over the state of Nevada, and had an absolute blast. People who had no idea what fly tying was all about actually got to see little artificial creatures, not just the big ones. That was really very special. The exhibit hall was perfect for it. It was out of the wind, it was cool, people could come in and out freely. Another aspect was when I actually got out into the fair and got to see the critters. And my wife's from Fallon, Nevada, and I'm from Hollywood, so you go figure that out. But she was 4-H, and she was pretty good in it. She has silver platters from it. This took her back to a very tender time of her life, and she got to pet the pigs. Now, that's the first time I ever pet a pig that's, you know, as big as this table. And that was the one that was bought by the restaurant, the really fine Adele's. Okay, you know, to have an opportunity for an outfit like Adele's to come in and purchase an animal that is of really high, genuine quality, raised by these young people, it was phenomenal. That's what this thing was really all about, was those kids had a place to show. That's what this whole thing was about. And that's what you guys did. That's what everybody that was involved in it, that's what you did. These young boys and girls, I like the chickens too, because I was hoping to get some feathers I could tie some flies with, but I didn't get quite that close. But I mean, they were all dressed up and, you know, they were sharp as a tack, and you got to see how really wonderful these kids are and how much effort and how much work they really had to put into these animals, okay? It was a little warm. I saw that they had to put wet towels on some of the sheep because it was pretty hot out and there wasn't really a lot of air movement. That might be an improvement. I don't know how you would do something like that, but something that would help them out a little bit more. This whole thing was about those kids, and you know, hats off. So thank you so much.
Thank you, CK. Could I get you to sign in as well, or print in? Any other public comments? Come on up.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
You're fine, just like that.
Okay. You guys have improved your system since I was up there. Anyway, I live in Carson City, Charlene Forschler for the record. And I told Marina after the fair and during the fair that I was shocked. I was absolutely amazed. I mean, I thought, okay, we're doing a fair, that's great, and I'm glad we're using Fuji Park. But we got over there, and we did go to both paid events as well as we had grandchildren that showed their animals. And there was something for everybody. So from the little grandkids that are like 9 showing their animals to the 14-year-olds that didn't have animals, they were laying out in the grass, still enjoying the fair. The family aspect was unreal. There was nobody hanging out. The security was great. There was always somebody there. So if you needed anything or you had a question, there was always somebody you could ask. It was clean. So I'm sure that's hats off to you guys, because there was no garbage that wasn't taken care of right away. So anyway, like I said, all aspects, it was fantastic. I think that Fuji Park was so different because you've got just the lawn, and then you've got all these trees for shade, as opposed to, you go to fairs sometimes, even in Reno, where they're on asphalt, and there's absolutely nothing to pull you in. I mean, you know, you just kind of, people hang out there, and that's about it. So I'm very impressed. I hope it is able to stay at Fuji Park, because I think that was absolutely a prime location for such an event. I have to say, Fandango, I thought they did a fabulous job. We used their system, never had to wait for a bus. They came like one after another. They had shade for the upper bus stop. So that was just incredible. And the employees of Fandango always wanted to know how it was going. And Amador bus lines, I mean, you just couldn't ask for anything better. And everybody had a common interest, so just lots of people to meet and have a good time with. So I really appreciate it, and I sure hope we do it again next year.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Could I add in just a quick one? CK Bailey again.
You're all done.
Thanks a lot, I'll catch it. No, the question that I had was, what effect did we have on Fandango, their business-wise, parking-wise, business-wise, and Costco, just as a sidebar? So that might come out in some of the stats, but that was an interest to me because they were really good neighbors, really good as far as I'm concerned. So I just was wondering about that. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, moving on. Item 3B. This is for possible action to recommend approval of the 90% completed designs for the multi-purpose athletic center, also known as the MAC project. Roger.
Well, I'd like to, I guess, maybe reintroduce to you Brent Tippett. He's our project architect from VCBO Architecture. Brent has met with this commission on many occasions, so I'm sure you all recognize his face. He's going to present the 90% completion plans for the MAC project. And two things before Brent gets started I'd like to cover. One, I'd like to introduce the other members of this project team, including Vern Cron. Vern's in the audience back here. It'd be good, yeah, wave your hands when I introduce you. Danny Rotter, with our city engineering staff, is over here in the front row. Jim Morris is a project manager from Public Works. And Bill Miles, construction, back here behind Jim. And then also Stacy Reed, sitting just to the right of Bill. So they're all involved in this project. And at the last meeting back in August, we kind of gave you an update of the project time schedule for the MAC. And one of the questions that came up is, what does it really mean to be an oversight committee? Recall us having that discussion, and we really didn't have a very good answer for you. You know, we probably looked like deer in headlights when you asked that question. So our engineering staff met with Nick Morano, our city manager, who happens to be in attendance back here. I think he's trying to keep a low profile, and I just blew that for him. But they met with him to kind of define what it means to be an oversight committee. So I thought I'd kind of read you verbatim. This is just given to me just a few minutes ago. What the roles and duties of an oversight committee is for this project. And it's really kind of three issues. First one is provide a forum for public information and comment at various stages of design and construction. The second one is to provide a forum for public information and comment regarding the status of the project budget during design and construction. And then the third one is really to provide recommendations to the Board of Supervisors for its consideration regarding the final design phases. So again, you know, it's kind of an extension of what you are as an advisory committee to the Board of Supervisors, but more specifically in the role of the project and the design for the MAC project. So I hope that kind of clarifies what your role is so you can feel comfortable as to what your role is in this project. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Brent. He's going to give a PowerPoint on the design. And again, we're talking about design. We're not talking about the operations or the programming of the facility, but as we all know, the programming of the facility also informs, to a certain degree, to a large extent, the design of the projects. So with that, Brent, you can take over.
Well, good evening. I'm happy and excited to be back in front of you. And I'm excited to see this project move forward to the point that it is, and appreciate the support that the Parks and Rec Board has given towards the project and continues to give towards the project to make sure that it does. I have the opportunity of seeing the impact that having these types of venues in a community, you talked about your fair and the positive impacts that has. I've seen the impact that public recreation facilities provide in communities for a community as a whole, for families, for individual growth. And I know and am confident that this facility will greatly enhance the quality of life in Carson City. I am here tonight to share with you kind of the 90% drawings or the concept of the MAC building with you, and share what the look like is. I do want to say that I'm not here to present the exact colors of the building, the exact landscaping. These are concepts. So colors is a topic for another time, and landscaping is a topic for another time. But I wanted to give you a feel for what it looks and feels like. So I'm going to share some images with you. First off, just to familiarize you with the site and the layout, you can see the Boys and Girls Club over here on the left with the new Carson City MAC gymnasium that would come in. What was previously brought before the Parks and Rec Commission sometime previously had the building on a different orientation and rotation, but we have aligned the building now currently to be on the same axis as the Boys and Girls Club and to work and make those two join together better. The site, you can see there is parking out in front. There's parking along the side. There's a total of 139 parking stalls that will be provided as part of the project. There's opportunities, there's landscaping behind the building, there's landscaping around and out on the front of the building. There's a dumpster enclosure provided here. There's a public plaza area out in front. This is where the main entrance comes into the building, and directly outside on the parking area here is where there would be parking designated for those disabled that may need that. There will be an access point off the back of the building here that'll come into a storage area, so the Parks and Rec will be able to move equipment easily in and out of that storage area. This would probably house some of their off-site needs as well as on-site needs, and so this gives them good access into there. The Boys and Girls Club will have just a short walk and a pathway that will take them directly from the Boys and Girls Club into the facility through here. Moving on and orienting you with the floor plan, this is the main floor, and as you enter the building, the parking lot was out here on the top. This is the main entrance. There'll be a lobby, there'll be a vestibule, and as you come in, there'll be a control counter that will be provided there that will be manned by staff. Behind the control counter, there is an office area. There are a couple of offices located there. There's a janitorial storage area. The purple represents a vending alcove that's provided. With a facility of this size, there's great need for public restrooms, and this area is designated for those public restrooms, with the women's located here, the men's located here, and then there is a unisex special needs restroom located in this area. In addition to that, around the corner here you have lockers and locker rooms provided for those that would use the facility. There's lockers, toilet facilities, lavatories provided in there. And of course, that brings us into the MAC, or the gymnasium. And you'll notice that we have 4 84-foot by 50-foot basketball courts that run in this direction. They're actually the capability of running in the 90 degrees to that. There are the capability of 2 94-foot by 50-foot basketball courts that could be accommodated as well. And then, kind of hard to tell in here, but this area here represents a volleyball goal lines that would be provided, so you can actually run 4 different volleyball games at any given time. Each of these 4 courts will be divided by a divider curtain that will drop down from the ceiling, so that they can be compartmentalized into 4 different courts for programming uses and needs. They'll be in there. There is spectator seating. These are collapsible pull-out bleachers that will be located here on this side and close to the entrance, so that they can come in and not walk across the maple floor, but will be able to have access into that. On the back side here, we have an equipment storage area. There's a roll-up door here, as there is one coming in from that access drive that I pointed to you on the site plan. So you'll be able to move equipment easily in and out of the building. We have public egress points located at all four corners of the building and have good access and good egress. We've worked with the building department and making sure that we're meeting all of the life safety issues, concerns. We have egress, providing all the proper plumbing facilities that are needed in here, and we believe that we've got to a point where everybody's appeased with that solution. There is also, as you come off the main lobby, there's a stair that goes up to the upper level and an elevator that will access that. That takes you up to the mezzanine, which is a walking, jogging track primarily, that will circulate around the MAC. And there are 3 lanes on that. There's a stretching area at the top of the stairs here, so as you come off out of the way of the walkers, joggers, there'll be a space there for them to do stretching. There are alcoves off to the side that allow people to step off the track, or else to equipment could be located there that could be the cardio equipment, restrained equipment that could be incorporated into this plan as well. This, of course, will all be open down, visually down into the gymnasium MAC court area, be highly integrated together, and works very well. There is an emergency egress off of this level. Off the back side, there's a stair that will service that need, and then there's a second egress through the main entrance to the lobby area. These corners will have windows in them, so as you're going around the running track, you'll be able to see something besides a wall. You'll be able to see daylight. You'll be able to see the weather conditions. Makes the experience of going around the track multiple times a little more interesting, a little more exciting. We are using skylights in the facility to bring in natural daylighting into the big volume of space. So in the roof structure, there are skylights that will bring natural daylighting, reducing the energy needs of lighting during the daytime and function well. Mechanical systems were also highly efficient mechanical systems. Again, I emphasize, I'm not trying to present the colors, but I want to give you the form of the building and what it looks like. This is a visual of what the entrance is off to the right-hand side here. This is that upper level stretching area with the glazing that looks off, and then you can see the corners of the building and how the windows will be able to see from the running track, as well as bring daylighting into the gymnasium space and making it much more interesting. The exterior materials of the building are primarily, you have concrete masonry block that is integrally colored. You see a lot of that around, but you'll have that on the lower portion. The upper portion of the wall is a metal panel, and that there are 2 different colors and 2 different profiles of that panel. We represent one here with a lighter color and the second one with a slightly darker color that comes into play here. And so that gives you a little bit. From the back side of the building, it follows the same architectural character. You can see the corners in a little bit more detail. The screening of the mechanical equipment and how we're addressing that off the back side, and start to get a feel from different angles. And then from the entrance to the building, you can see here as you come in, that's what the look will be. You've got the glazed curtain wall or storefront system here. You've got masonry with the opportunity for signage that will identify the facility and hopefully make it of more interest as you come into it. This little area off the bump out right here is where that office area that the staff will be supporting off of. That gives you a general idea of the exterior and what it looks like. We move into the interior of the building and walk through those double doors that you see right there, and you stand in the lobby. You'll be looking in past the control desk here into the gymnasium. There is glazing that you'll be able to visually see from the lobby area into the gym. This would be that control point. Going up to the right here would be where the stair and the elevator are located, and around the corner would be going to the locker room this way to the right, or going this way to the left would take you to the vending alcove. And that would be more of the experience. There'll be signage that would be located up above here. Gives you a feel for the mass, what the looks of it would be. Moving into the gymnasium itself, you can start to see the experience that you'll feel with the floor here. You've got the upper level walking, jogging track. The structure will be exposed. The mechanical ductwork will be exposed, but will all be painted out. And we see this in a lot of similar facilities. There'll be acoustical treatments on the wall to help to absorb the reverberation and the depth of the noise that you have in there. You can see the basketball standards here. The project is also scheduled to receive some automatically fold down volleyball goals. It's a little hard to see, but they're represented here on the back side. They come up, and so there'll be both volleyball and basketball standards that will be lowered out of the ceilings and will drop down for easy operations, reduced amount of staff that'll have to man the facility and operate those, and how that will function. That's pretty much walking you through. You probably have some questions. I'd love to answer them. I hope you can see the vision and the opportunity and the potential that this facility would provide for your community. I'll take questions.
Commissioner Curtis.
I was going to say, bleh, because it's not the building that we saw a couple, 3 years ago.
There's a lot of history with this project, and we're thrilled to have something here that we
Yes,
can
I know.
build.
We're thrilled to have something, but there's a lot of amenities. But as I understand it, should somehow or another some fortune come our way, then would it be possible to build onto this?
Yes, to answer your question. There is the potential, of course, there are issues that will need to be addressed, one of which would be parking, and how do we address that parking. But there's plenty of space to add additional courts out to the backside that could come into play. There's also space here off to the right-hand side of the front entrance that we've intentionally kind of placed things where we have, so that there could be the addition of a fitness, cardio area, aerobics room space. Those types of things could be, that could be a one-story volume, that could be a two-story volume, both of which would work with the current layouts and the current plans.
I might add that that is one of the reasons why we reoriented the access of the building, because it provided a little bit more room in the, I guess it'd be the southeast front of the building for expansion, that area right there. And then speaking of parking, remember, you know, we've entered into a joint use agreement with the Boys and Girls Club. So on weekends, if we had large events or if we had required more parking, we have the ability to use their parking area as well.
Commissioner Cassiopo.
Do you have you worked up a cost for this part and an estimate on where we're at dollar-wise?
We are working with Miles Construction, who is our STEM. Sorry. We believe that we are on budget. The costs are being tracked through all phases as we go in. The next phase, we're very close to being able to issue it out for final pricing with subcontractors, and we'll have the exact numbers that will come through. But we feel comfortable where we're at this point.
We'll be bringing this back on November 5th for a project presentation. It'll include the 100% design phase.
Any other comments?
That was easy.
Yeah, mine was the cost question. That one seems like it got answered. I guess we'll see more in November. But so based on what we saw from the examples, like that's still, I guess the rendering is giving us an accurate kind of representation of what our money can buy.
We're trying to give you an idea of the breadth and width of the project, what the feel of it would be. And we are getting very close to wrapping up the complete design and having the full pricing. So.
Sure.
I have one more quick thing.
Okay.
Just a comment, I had a chance to go up to Boise State and look at their fairly new recreational facility, and it's a bit larger than what we're trying to do here, but the general appearance when you walk in, and it was kind of similar, where you have the arched staffing area with the entrance, and the aisle wisps seem like they're relatively to scale with what we have here. And they get a lot of people coming in and out of there, and it works pretty well. And the track up above, I mean, there seems like there was always something going on, so when you had people on the track, it seems like there was always something to look at. You know, the kids are always looking left and right and down to the basketball, and so the layout, I guess what I'm saying, is really, does seem to be pretty conducive to what we're trying to do here.
One thing I'll just play off of on that comment is having the walking jogging track in conjunction with the gyms is actually a very positive thing. It's been proven to be, in that it's self-policing, and we find that there are less issues that occur in a facility where there are more eyes on the floor, and that makes for a safer environment for everybody involved.
I have a question. Could you refresh me on the time frame? When are we going to begin construction, and when is construction anticipated to be concluded?
I'll hit on that, and if, Roger, if you have anything to add, but the plan is that we're going to actually be done with the drawings in October. We'll be working through final permitting process with the city and the building department. Then we will also be pricing out the project through our construction manager, and have pricing back and be able to start construction in March. Any?
With completion slated for June of 16.
Any other comments? All right, any public comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look forward to being back.
Looks like we are moving on, to number 3C, which is the presentation and discussion on the draft management plan for Carson City open space and parks for the Carson River area.
Sorry.
Before we go on,
Oh, 1 second.
possible action, recommend approval of the 90% plans on the last item.
Yeah.
Ah, good,
It is an action.
good call.
It is an action item.
Yeah,
Thank you,
it is
John.
for possible action. Does anybody want to take a stab at it?
I'll do it. I move to recommend approval of the 90% completed design plans for the Multipurpose Athletic Center MAC project.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No nays. All right. All right, now we're moving on to 3C. Presentation and discussion only on the draft management plan for Carson City open space and parks in the Carson River area dated July 2014, with an emphasis on Chapter 4, Parks and Trails. And this is with Roger, Ron, and Ann.
Sure. Juan and Lynn Zong here to my left. Lynn is with Resource Concepts. They're going to present this item. And I just want to mention to you, you probably saw as an FYI in your agenda, that this is going to be the last time that Juan is going to be before you as a staff member. So if you want to abuse him, this is the last time you're going to have an opportunity to have that. But this is kind of Juan's song, I guess, here. So, oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Juan and Lynn.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be here, and I'm very sorry that once you are getting used to my accent, I leave you alone. So you have to get used to a new accent very soon. Mr. Chairman, it is my pleasure to be here, and I would like to send salutations from Ann Bollinger. She is indisposed. She's sick, and she could not be with us tonight. The management plan has been, we have been talking about it to you for I don't know how long, and we finally have a complete draft of the entire product. This will allow you for the opportunity to see how all the parts fit together or do not, and what else would you like us to do. Just in very general terms, at the back of room on the table, there is a page called Management Plan, is the title. And in the second page, there's an area for submitting comments. And we appreciate it if whoever likes to submit comments in writing, provide us with this form. And we ask you to do it by September 12th of 2014 so that we can keep the process moving along. We also received the testimony given over the microphone will be part of the record as well. Lynn Zahn is our resource extraordinaire. She's a resource on herself. She has been helping us with this master plan. Also in the audience is Mark Kimbrough, who sometimes comes as staff, sometimes or help for staff, other times comes of his own. But you can feel free to ask him questions and put him on the spot. He loves that. And me and Roger complete the team for this project as well as Ann. In general, all of the lands along the Carson River have been divided primarily into 3 different categories. Lands that are subject to a conservation easement, lands that are subject to the Parks Department rules and regulations, and lands that are subject to open space, parks and regulation. It is a complex document, and each one of those categories represent a different level of things that the lands can be used and intensity of not only potential uses, but the interaction of those uses and the resources and the care of the resources. The reason to organize it that way is that we have grants and other documents that restrict, in fact, the use of the property. So we are required to bring the information that way. Is much simpler. With that, I will let Lynn take you throughout the plans, and after she finishes her presentation, we'll be more than happy to answer all the questions and receive public testimony as well.
Thank you, Juan. I'm just going to walk you through the document so it'll be a little easier for you and the public to go to the areas that are important that you want to review, focusing on Chapter 4. So the management plan is available online at carson.org, and for more information, you can call Ann at that number, and then also for receiving comments, you can fill out the forms here tonight. You can also email them to Ann, and we're hoping to get all comments by September 12th. Oh, I didn't do that. Okay. So the draft plan has been presented to the Open Space Committee on several occasions. In January, we presented chapters 1 and 2, which were the introduction and then the conservation easement lands. In June, we presented chapter 3, which was the open space lands. And then just in August, we presented all chapters. And we'll walk through all of those here tonight. So the introduction gives an overview of the area with this very colorful map with the different types of lands color-coded. Green are the conservation easements, blue are the open space lands, purple are the parks lands, and then that different kind of hashing has to do with a programmatic agreement, which has to do with cultural resources. The purpose of the plan is to satisfy the BLM conservation easement requirement to have a management plan for the conservation easement lands, to describe the land condition and development and use, to summarize the pertinent information in existing documents, and that is huge. Ann did an amazing job pulling all that together into this document. So it's a reference document for each one of these properties. It's very, very good. And then to have recommended management actions for each one of the properties. The entire document is based on existing guidance documents plans, etc. There is nothing made up in this plan. It is all based on existing information. Where new things need to be developed, it is called out that these things need to be developed. We need more guidance in these areas. So I think it's really important for you all to understand, public to understand that the management plan in front of you is based on existing documents, and these are called out throughout the document where we reference them. Yes, please.
I'm going to insert a little comment here that, as you can see, this goes all the way back to 1996 to the present, to 2014, and each one of these documents really represents a tremendous amount of public input that was involved in the formation of each one of these documents. So this has been all over the public, in front of the public for many years, and I feel really good about the input that we've been able to receive from the residents of Carson City in this whole process.
Thank you. So moving on, Chapter 2 describes the conservation easements lands in detail, including Ambrose Carson River Natural Area, Prison Hill Recreation Area, and the Silver Saddle Ranch. Those are very large parcels of land. There's the Ambrose, this is Prison Hill and Silver Saddle, very large areas. It goes through the management guidelines and regulations that are existing for those properties, where they are, what their characteristics are, some photos, what the recreation management for those properties are, and then a summary of recommended actions. At the end of every chapter, there is a summary of recommended actions for those lands, so it makes it easy to look at what we're planning on doing. The open space lands are those that are in blue. It includes Carson River Canyon, which is a very large area over here, Golden Eagle, Mexican Dam, the Moffett property, Morgan Mill Preserve, fairly small parcels. The unnamed parcels, that was the Anderson Ranch and Girard Ranch, and then the unnamed Vidler donation that are looking for names. Again, it goes through the locations, characteristics, the existing facilities. Again, great reference document for what is existing there, what events can happen there, and a summary of recommended actions. Then Chapter 4, we get to the important part for this evening, all of the purple lands, which includes Ambrose Carson River Natural Area, the Carson River Park, Prison Hill Recreation Area, that's Parks Land, Riverview Park, and the Korean War Veterans Memorial Park, as well as numerous trails, including the Carson River Aquatic Trail, the Empire Ranch Trail, Hidden Meadows Trailhead, Mexican Ditch Trail, and the Morgan Mill Road River Access Area. And I'll go through each of those individually now. So the Ambrose Carson River Natural Area abuts the conservation easement lands here. So that's why it's important to manage them in concert together, since here's the parking for that area. So the recommended actions for the Ambrose Carson River Natural Area are to evaluate an at-grade river crossing for equestrians, install a bridge across the Carson River as identified in the Unified Pathway Master Plan, which would provide a link across the river. So you can see how wonderful that would be to have that link. There's the Empire Ranch property. Okay. The Vidler property, the Riverview Park down here. It's a really wonderful little section. It's nice riparian gallery forest down there. It's quite lovely. Keep going. The Carson River Park is there by Lloyd's Bridge, Carson River Road. It encompasses that developed area on the west side of the river, as well as a very large part of undeveloped property on the east side of the river. There's also a fishing pier. There's really only one recommendation for this area, was near the fishing pier, replace the access gate to Silver Saddle Ranch with a gate or other control structure which can accommodate a diversity of users and non-motorized recreation users. That was from a bicyclist. It was kind of hard to pull the bicycle over the existing gate. We have gotten some comments on this property when we did the workshop, open house for the open space advisory committee. But we weren't going to bring those forward here tonight. We're just here to get more input on the area. The Prison Hill Recreation Area is this little purple area right here, which is by the water tanks by the Prison Hill area. The recommended actions are to improve the designated parking areas and coordinate with Public Works regarding the road maintenance on Kuntz Lane. The recent grading and installation of water bars to manage water flows resulted in difficult to impossible drive access by car. So, and that's a highly used area over there. Then there's the beautiful Riverview Park with its fantastic walking trails that includes a little tiny piece on the east side of the river as well. The recommended actions are to continue fuels reduction treatments along residential fence lines. And we didn't have any specific recommendations for the Korean War Veterans Memorial Park or for the Hidden Meadows Trailhead. Then we have the Empire Ranch Trail, which connects Morgan Mill Road River Access Area all the way down to the, what is the name of that access there? Empire Ranch. Empire Ranch Trailhead. And the recommended action there is to connect with an additional trail to the south and Riverview Park by 2015. The Mexican Ditch Trail goes all the way from Mexican Dam in the south, all the way up to the Moffett property to the north. And the proposed action is to connect from the Moffett property to the Empire Ranch Trail, develop a safe street crossing on Carson River Road, which right now there is no designated street parking crossing there. Restore the trail both north and south of the Red House complex so that you have connectivity in the, or better connectivity in the Silver Saddle area. And coordinate with the Mexican Dam and Ditch Company and/or ranch contractor regarding ditch maintenance and to ensure that sediment is not placed on the pathways, which is typical maintenance for a ditch. Let's put it on the path. Morgan Mill Road River Access Area is a small area that we all know and love with the boating access for the aquatic trail. It's fairly new. We don't really have any recommendations in that area for this time. That's it for the land. Those were the specific recommendations for those specific lands. Then Chapter 5 goes into management considerations for all the lands. It includes a section addressing adjacent lands, the BLM lands, the Nevada state lands. It addresses maintenance and performance levels, just as all the properties do, recreation and resource management, and a summary of recommended actions. The resources are broken out in a fair amount of detail for all of these listed here. There's some overlap, some things are said twice, but we thought it was important for these specific issues to be discussed separately because they were all items that the public brought up as resources of concern. So there's detail in all of those areas for what's proposed, what's appropriate for those things. Chapter 6 is the administration, which goes into related plans and ordinances, fees and reservations, communication planning, again, a summary of recommended actions. Chapter 7 details the staffing and budgets, it describes the responsibilities for different staff, the budgets, again, summary of recommended actions, and then Chapter 8 is a reference section that takes you through the whole document.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just asking the question, but prior to this, the specifics kind of referencing the other, I guess, management plans and pulling them all together, what existed for this management plan? Or lack of management plan, maybe, I don't know.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, there wasn't an existing comprehensive management plan for the Carson River lands, Carson River area lands. And so, as Lynn said, what it did was it pulled all the elements from all these other master plans together to develop and, put this together. And I want to mention one thing that, I'm not sure if we mentioned this in the presentation, but we've kind of made an assumption here because we've covered this with the Open Space Advisory Committee a couple times, and I'm not sure if you, all of you understand what we mean by the conservation easement properties. Those are the properties that we're going to be obtaining, through a deed transfer from the Bureau of Land Management as part of what we called what we commonly refer to as the Carson Lands Bill, Carson City Lands Bill, but it's, the full name of it is the Omnibus, well, I'd have to look it up. So we call it the Carson City Lands Bill, but I just wanted to make sure you understood when we were referring to the conservation easement, I want this commission to understand that this is currently federal property, BLM property that's coming to us through the Carson City Lands Bill.
And that's the same property they were talking about, potential disc golf in that same kind of area, or is that different?
And that's a good question, because the reason we're bringing this to this commission is that since all these properties are basically border each other, they're all kind of connected to each other, we thought that it makes sense when we're developing this management plan that we look at this as one big piece, including the parks properties and the open space properties. However, we also recognize, because we'd like to have somewhat of a consistent management approach to all those properties, but at the same time, we recognize that there are some restrictions on the open space property that don't apply to the parks properties. And that probably the most obvious one is the difference between passive recreation and active recreation. Active recreation, by almost all those documents that we showed you previously, are prohibited on open space properties, and more importantly, prohibited on the conservation easement, which is really federal law, part of the federal law of the Carson City Lands Bill. And so you mentioned the disc golf course. That's why when we've been talking about the disc golf course in the past, we've had to really pretty much eliminate the open space properties for the disc golf, because by definition in those plans and in the conservation easement, disc golf is a form of active recreation. So if we're going to have disc golf in that area, it's going to have to be in some of the park properties or some other properties. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, in general, I guess, was there another BLM land that's supposed to come over as well, or is that's inclusive, that's part of it?
No, that's pretty much all of it, but if you look at the map that's on the screen, you can see the large green area, the Prison Hill area at the bottom. The property just to the west of that, adjacent to it, is that pink pink property. That is property that is coming to the city as parks property.
Okay. Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you. Juan.
I wanted to add, when you ask, so before this draft plan, what was there, basically it was the Carson River plan was the main document. Now, the big difference is that at the time that the Carson River plan was written, all these lands were private, and now they're public. So now we're coming forth with uses of these lands as parks or as open spaces or subject to the conservation easement, while before it was a private property owner being the steward of those lands.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, yeah, I'm going to reverse myself a little bit. Because I remember when we were talking about this plan and even in our master plan about open space and passive uses, et cetera, I belonged to FOSSER, which is Friends of Silver Saddle Ranch, and we were adamant that there would be no activity out there resembling, circuses or fairs or that kind of thing. But now we've had a fair, and I'm thinking in the future that if we're going to have a shuttle service or something, there may be venues. And one would be to bring people out to a ranch, and which is what's out there. And maybe bring kids out and, let them see cattle in real life, not in stalls and buildings. And so here it says, fairs, et cetera, are prohibited. I mean, it's pretty clear, but is there wiggle room in there?
No, well, I'm going to say no. In the area of the conservation easement, there's no wiggle room. However, I'm just taking the extreme position. That's probably what my lawyer will advise me. However, it is a very large area, Donna. So there's wiggle room in areas that are managed by parks or areas that were purposely purchased or used as a park, and there's wiggle room in some areas also as open space. The key is on the detail. Bringing kids to observe an operation, I don't think will be any problem. As a matter of fact, in the conservation easement, we want education to be one of the main activities. So that means bringing people in. So we will incorporate certain activities as possible. Fairs, carnivals, those kind of things are specifically prohibited as part of the conservation easement. So those are the hatch. There's always exception. For example, at the very south end, there's a motorized area. And the people who participate in the motorized area will love to have events of motorized use in there. I'm sure the neighbors will really do not like that. But you see, it's one of the potential things that in the future may happen.
If I could piggyback to that a little bit too. The motorized area on the south end of Prison Hill is stipulated as an existing use that needs to continue in the conservation easement. And again, that is part of the law of the Carson City Lands Bill, and it was also approved by the Board of Supervisors. So that is going to, that use is going to remain. It does allow the opportunity to close it down temporarily or close down portions of it to protect the natural resources in the area. But it's very specific about what types of uses are allowed on the conservation easements. And as mentioned before, disc golf is explicitly mentioned, and so is hot air balloon festivals are mentioned as active forms of recreation. So there is not a whole lot of wiggle room, but as Juan mentioned, one of the purposes of the conservation easement area is to provide interpretation opportunities for our public, and it doesn't necessarily have to be natural or natural type of interpretation. It could also be cultural type of interpretation, which that whole area is part of an agrarian portion of our society. And so it is possible that we could have, some type of displays or some type of activities down there to bring school children down and learn about where their meat comes from, where their milk comes from, those type of activities.
I think another way of looking at it too is that one of the primary function of certain areas, like in the conservation easement, again, except for the motorized area, is to preserve resources as opposed to open space where is to balance recreation with resources, and as opposed to parks where is to recreate. So you see the emphasis is a little different. Mr. Chairman, also I have noticed that most of the people in the audience are residents of Figure 3.2. Do we have a slide of Figure 3.2? See if you can find in your collection of goodies. You don't think so?
I can zoom in on this.
Yeah, can you? And then we can talk. I know that it's going to be, you're going to receive input about it, so we might as well talk about it. So that figure addresses the area of the property known as Mexican Dam Open Space and the Golden Eagle Open Space. The Golden Eagle Open Space was purchased from the Somier family, and Bill and his wife are here, and his brother is sitting down there too. So they live in that area. One of the main concerns relate to the access into that area. That blue polygon, that Linzon just hit is the Sormier property, nowadays known as Eagle, Golden Eagle Open Space. And the one to the north is Mexican Dam property. Those are access from an existing road adjacent to the river. One of the many issues of those two properties is that is the easier way to get to those properties through that road. The families who live in the white polygon in between the two blonde polygons in that area are the ones responsible for obtaining permits from BLM because the road crosses on sections of BLM, of organizing themselves among the neighbors, paying for the maintenance of that road and keeping it up. So for that purpose, they have posted it, no trespassing, private road, private property. Through time, there were, as part of parcel maps and subdivision processes, there were parcels that offer for dedication portions of the road. Now it gets quite a bit more complicated. An offer of dedication is just that. It's just an offer to the board of supervisors so for their consideration in the future for that road to become public. It doesn't necessarily make it public. It's just available. By the same token, when we purchased the Golden Eagle open space, we purchased the right for Carson City to use that road. So if you find Carson City and all its population, everybody has then the right to be in there. However, there's also a document filed with those papers, an existing document that provides that road was going to be for private use. So you have contradictory information, on both sides. What we anticipate is that in the future we will talk some more with the neighbors, and we will figure out a way by which Carson City, through the open space program, can contribute its share towards the use of the road. And I don't know if that's going to be acceptable to either the neighbors or the board supervisors. And I'm on my way out. However, Mr. Mollendorf will be the guy carrying this flag at some point in the future. So that is potentially the solution one of the solutions to this problem. What we really want not to do is to go on and get the neighbors to obtain the lawyers and for we to obtain lawyers and discuss it and litigate it. That's rather we'll keep the lawyers away and we try to find a solution that is amicable for everybody.
And now you understand why I denied his retirement request.
That's one of the many.
Commissioner McKenna.
Okay, Juan, as of right now, what's the status between open space and the neighbors? Are things working out all right? Are we having problems? And what's going to happen until the problem is resolved?
Right now, I don't believe that there have not been any major problems. The neighbors have never stopped me or stopped any official vehicle from the car. The neighbors, from time to time, we have received comments of private people using the road that the neighbors have approached them and asked them not to use the road, particularly those in motorcycles that maintain the road. But you know what? You shouldn't ask me. You should ask the neighbors, and they'll come in a minute and tell you.
Okay by me. Ask the neighbors.
Yeah.
Do we have any other comments?
Any other questions?
Any other questions? No. All right. Public comment? If I could just have you print your name down there once you sign in also. Could I have you print your name just on the sheet to sign?
My name's Jack Porchler. I live out on Golden Eagle Lane. There's actually me and 4 other members that were on the original Carson River Board that are here tonight. Our concern is, as with the Carson City river plan that was originally put up, is there was about 3 major things that we were worried about. One was the access to the river by the folks from Carson City, and we made it in pods so people could come to the river in different places. Number 2 was the wildlife around the river, which it has enhanced tremendously since that problem came before us, and it was actually started quite a while before that, because when we first purchased the property out there was not a living thing out there. Everything had been shot. And now we have every kind of aquatic life, deer, mink, you name it, that have come back, and including lions, which I've had the Department of Agriculture kill 7 of them out there on my place trying to eat the sheep. So if there is, except for chucker, I don't think there is another species in Nevada that is not out there at this time, which is terrific, and that's what we were hoping, is that people would be able to come out and see some of that wildlife. But the third, and one of our major ones for the committee, was private property rights. And that is what we're worried about on this one, is there's a proposed parking lot at the end of our street on Golden Eagle Lane, on, I forget what you call that, Mexican River property, Mexican River Dam property, and we are very much against that. My main reasons are, of course, we don't like too much traffic on our road. It is a dirt road. We do maintain it. But you have access on that property from 3 different sides. The river is a federal river, so anybody can walk up and down and get on that property from the river. You have the Mexican Ditch Road that is on the Silver Saddle Ranch and continues all the way to the dam, which gives you access to that dam. And the other one is from the Prison Hill off-road vehicle area. All 3 of them border that property. And several others will probably speak also of this, but that is our main focus. We have an awful lot of problems now with the off-road vehicle people and the bikes, which is an off-road vehicle. We do maintain that road, and we are continually working after. On this last storm that we had an awful lot of damage. It is pretty much taken care of. We probably have another week of work. But if we want anything from the city, I think it would be, if nothing else, signage to tell people, keep off this road. And I'm talking about the road all the way to Snyder Lane, because that is really a public access for a road. The off-road vehicle people have a mountain to play on up there, and we have no problem with that. But we think that they should use that and not our road, because we maintain it. Is there any questions any of you have for me?
Commissioner McKenna.
Jack, so your primary concern is the off-road people and the parking lot for four-wheel drive, or for
you actually
vehicles?
the parking lot. I'm sorry. The parking lot that is proposed is to access that piece of property of Mexican Dam area that belongs to the city, and we do not want it near our properties.
You rather have access from the north coming in through Silver Saddle?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
We really let people, an awful lot of people use that Mexican ditch trail now. And a lot of them go clear through and come out on Snyder Avenue. And we don't have any problems with people walking or even using their bicycles. But it's our land, and we don't want to have to clean up after everybody in the city that comes out there. It may not be a good thing to say, but a lot of people don't take care of the land. The people that live out there really love that land.
Just a comment, this is a third grouping with this type of problem. Clear Creek, Sierra Vista Lane, and now this. So the RTC is going to have to look at it, and we're going to work with open space, because open space is going to have to kick in some money to maintain these roads out there, like Mexican Dam Road and that sort of thing. So it's, I just want to make sure that everybody's getting along right now until we have time to settle this whole thing.
I don't believe any of us have any problem with the city out there, and we like taking care of our road. We take care of it the way we like it taken care of that way.
I would like to comment on that too, as the caretakers of the city's property out there owned by the city. We do think that it is very appropriate the open space program also be involved in the maintenance of that road as well.
But and I just think that Juan's leaving us with a problem, and we need to recognize the problem and start working on it.
Yes, sir. I just historically have off-road vehicles, particularly motorized, been on your property and using that road, or is this something of a recent nature?
They've never used it. There was no road there. We built the road. We built it and maintained it all the way from Snyder to our property.
Donna, Jack used to run cows out there for many years, so he's retired, I guess.
No, I still have sheep, and the lions love them.
And that's allowed? The motorized off-road vehicles and bikes are allowed on his road?
Well, Jack has a very long driveway, so no, they're not allowed on his property. But the motorized use, public use of the road will be allowed up to our property. That's what I was talking about, and that's the point of controversy. Many of these roads is not clear what the status is, and one of the ways to clear up, of course, is to form an agreement and stipulate what is it that is going to be. When there's land divisions, when there's processes such as parcel maps, the city assumes that public access is a given, unless it's stipulated on those maps or that is a private road.
Okay. One, isn't that piece that you just bought, the one that borders us, that is not open to motorized vehicles, I don't believe.
That's correct. And I would like to correct you, it's Mr. McKenna signed the check, not me.
You can't evade the blame, Juan.
So yeah, I've run out there quite a bit, and it's pretty common to see ATVs, motorcycles, and stuff zipping up and down on the road. So I recognize I have seen it, and I guess regardless, even if it was a city-owned or county-owned or whatever road, they wouldn't necessarily be legal. They're not DOT vehicles, but I guess there's the whole enforcement aspect of it.
But I think they're allowed on the mountain.
They're allowed on the mountain.
They're allowed in that area. It's just,
right.
So.
Sure. But I would see that being no difference than being them zipping up and down Snyder, like back where it's back in town. because they're allowed on the mountain on the south side of the Prison Hill. Like, they could still get there, but they shouldn't necessarily maybe be there. So, Jack, I had a question for you. If the city was to come into agreement and maintain the road, would you object to having that parking lot at the end if you no longer were responsible for maintaining it?
Yeah, I don't think we would like it there for any reason, just because it brings out many more people. And like I stated before, the wildlife, the more people that are there, if they walk through, it doesn't seem to bother them. But if you bring out cars, then they're going to go down and decide that that's the swimming hole for Carson City, which the Mexican Dam used to be the swimming hole for the Carson City High School party place, and that could happen again. And that's the main reason that I object to it. Everybody else can speak for themselves.
Sure, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Bill DeZormier, and I live out on the terminus of Golden Eagle Lane. And I've been there as long as that new road has been there. We built it. Prior to 1984, there was no road on that white parcel between the two open space parcels. In 1984, we built a road from the gauging station, which is located on the Golden Eagle open space, through our property, and we serviced the adjoining properties. And when we built the road, we created a private easement. And on this private easement, it was for the purpose and use of each property owner out there, and the public was specifically excluded from those easements. This easement still exists as a private easement, and the ownership is on 3 parcels, and the parcels belong to my brother Paul and his daughter. I've looked at this document, and it's a good document. It's a good start. I take exception on page 315 where they say, from the Snyder Avenue and Gentry Lane intersection, travel south and around on Golden Eagle Lane for approximately 3 miles to the terminus. Now, this document is inviting the public to trespass on this private land. And that rubs me a little wrong. I see that someday this may be a public road, and I did a parcel map on some of the land, and I offered that road to the city I dedicated it to the city, and the city did not accept it. Part of my parcel map, half of the land was given to my brother, and he parceled his land. And at that time, the road was again offered for dedication to the city, and the city did not accept it. This document implies that the easement the nature of the easement is not well defined, and I think it is very well defined, and that this document inviting the public on our private land is wrong. I would like to address that parking lot on the Mexican Dam open space. The Mexican Dam open space can be accessed from the Mexican Ditch Trail and from Prison Hill. It does not have to be accessed by vehicle from the south. If you did build a parking lot on the Mexican Dam open space, you'd be driving through the Golden Eagle open space to get to it. Doesn't it make more sense to put the parking lot on BLM land further to the south so that people that really want to enjoy the open space land can walk through it or bicycle through it or horseback ride through it? And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions? All right. Well, we appreciate you shedding a little light on it, and
Okay.
it's good to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. Morris White for the record. I addressed some of these issues that I have with this document at the August meeting of the open space. I have not yet had these questions addressed, and I have some additional questions. There's some inconsistencies in this document in regards to the amount of property that is going to be managed. This document adds these up in several different places. I have quite a few discrepancies actually, and I won't go into them detail here, but I will leave the document for for Roger to put into the record. But what it amounts to is this document talks about managing property somewhere between 5,250 acres and 5,941 acres. Now, I do understand on large pieces of property like this, sometimes it's difficult to get down to the real minute sections, but I think we should be able to get this figured out a little closer than 5,250 and 5,941. Additionally, in Chapter 4, referring to the Mexican Ditch Trail, in the text, in the description, it talks about 3.5 miles of trail. However, on Table 1 and Table 11, those tables show this trail to be 4 miles long. I think we should be able to get that a little bit closer. Also in the text on page 2.2, permitted uses, I brought this up in the previous meeting also, and I have not got any answer back. This section is verbatim from the Conservation Easement, Section 5, page 3, except that you've left off the part reading without limiting the foregoing. It's a pretty long sentence. I think we need to understand why we would have a verbatim section included in this management plan but leave out a little short piece like that. I think we should have an explanation why that's not being included. Also, on page 2-3 in the permitted uses, this is also a verbatim section, but what I wanted to point out here is this sentence makes no sense. It says nothing. I just simply would like to have an explanation as to what is intended by this sentence. On page 4-21, the description of Prison Hill, while it says that the most popular use of Prison Hill is non-motorized use, it does not reference or remark at all about the prescribed motorized uses of the south end of Prison Hill. And I believe in this management plan, when you're describing the uses of the piece of property, you should include all of the uses of those pieces of property. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you.
No, is that, Roger, is that something, I know this is mainly for comment, but could we just get a copy so you guys could reference some of that stuff?
We will. Mr. White said he had a copy, and
Yes.
he'd give to me. And I just want to state that the staff has been working on some of your concerns you brought at the August meeting, as well as other people who expressed some concerns. And we're pretty close to having an answer to all those questions. So,
Okay.
But I'd be happy to receive that document so we can double check it.
Yeah, because I have some additional
Good.
questions beyond what I had last time.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Curtis? Go ahead.
Okay, while the gentleman's signing in, what's next for these people out there? I mean, it sounds like, there's documents that seem to be at odds with each other, got a long history. And is the city going to be meeting with them and trying to see if they can work something out? Or what happens? Are we just going to leave it?
Yes to all of the above.
Again, this is the, basically the public hearing phase of this document. And as you know, it's a pretty thick document. It involves a lot of issues. And so this is the purpose of this meeting, to get the input from the public. If they find things that they're not happy with, or if they find discrepancies or inconsistencies in the document, we need to know about that. Eventually, we hope when we finally get to after working with the public, when we get to a finished stage, and we'll bring it to the Board of Supervisors for their approval. But I think you can understand, when you look at this document again, the management challenges that we have, in obtaining this property and managing it. So it's going to be, a pretty hefty responsibility.
All right, welcome.
Hi, I'm Paul Sennett, for the record, and I live on the face of Prison Hill. That Parks parcel that's in the front there, there's a blue parcel in front of that, and there used to be a 20-acre or 40-acre, or was it 40-acre parcel that BLM was going to put in their fire station at. Is that still in that omnibus bill?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but no, it's not. And it's been withdrawn from the omnibus bill. The BLM has contacted the city to consider entering into a recreation and public purposes lease for that property.
Okay, all the way down to Edmonds there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, does it go all the way to Edmonds? It's 40 acres. You can see the purple property right there, just right there. That's the area right in there.
Right.
Yeah, that area, and it does look like it does come down to Edmonds, but, so we're going to be exploring that.
Legally, if it even goes west of Edmonds and includes a portion that is going to be used for the freeway, because under federal law, the roads are, the fee title of the land under it is still federal no matter what, so even if there's a road on top. So, but that's more confusing. So the answer to you is yes, the land has been withdrawn for the purpose of the hot shots, and the BLM present manager have asked us to submit for an RPMP, to submit a plan for the land to be devoted pretty much for open space and just trail access or access into the BLM area. The entire parcel. And then the purple one is where the water tanks are.
Right, that whole square, yeah.
Right.
Or rectangle. All right, perfect.
Do I take you love the plan?
Hello, my name is Paul DeZomir. I'm Bill's brother, and I own the 3 properties with my daughter that we were talking about. We do have paperwork saying that we offered it to the city twice, and they didn't accept it. And they've always said that it's open, but it is not open. We have documents. The problem is the quads and the motorcycles, they just tear the road up. They leave trash. If you build a parking lot there, it's just going to get worse. That's why we moved out there, because we wanted the peace out there. It's very quiet out there until they come out there. That's really all I have to say.
Sure. No, I appreciate you voicing your concern, and seems like it's obviously kind of a common tone. And not having lived out there, I can't speak for it, so thank you.
Charlene Forschler again. I didn't think I had anything else to say, but I just actually have a question. You know how people say, somebody will tell you something and it kind of gets passed on, and you don't ever really know if it's true or not. So I think that that's actually what brought some of us here tonight, is because we were told by other property owners in Carson about the proposed parking lot. So when I first saw the maps up there, I thought, oh, wow, good, it does end there. And I thought, so we shouldn't be worried, because apparently we were misinformed. But now everybody's talking about the parking lot. So my question is, where's the proposed parking lot in the plan?
Because it's a matter of design. It's just an idea being floated that we will have a parking lot of sufficient distance away to minimize the disturbance to the daily disturbance to the neighbors, but the ability to have people to come to the property by motorized use. There's no more design to it than the idea. If the idea is not accepted or it goes out of the plan because of the input from neighbors, then there will not be a parking lot.
Okay. Like I said, I just wondered, because I went from thinking, okay, there's no parking lot, to now hearing that there might be a parking lot. Because again, like everybody said, there is access. That's definitely motorized vehicles there on Prison Hill, and there's no problem with that. It's been designated for that. They're there all the time. There's parking area up there. Trailers come in with their quads or whatever. Not a problem. But again, I would think that the parking lot, if you were going to put one, could be up there as well, and it would still give them access to the open area down on the river by foot, and that would be a problem. And that takes away the public using the road that we have.
Thank you.
The idea on that parking lot was, I just want to state, this is kind of maybe stating the obvious, but the idea of the parking lot was not to provide an entry for motorized use into that area, but to provide an entry for people to drive to the area to park and then travel by non-motorized means to the Mexican Dam. But as you pointed out, there is another opportunity to access it from the other end, from the north end as well.
Right, and I think that would make more sense anyway, because they're going to be going by foot or whatever. It's not motorized down there to the dam.
Any other comments?
Sorry to see Juan's leaving.
Commissioner McKenna?
There's no more public comment. Juan, can you tell us what's going to happen next? You're going to take all these comments, revise the document, and present it before you leave?
That's all we ask.
When are you leaving us?
My last day is Thursday. So no, it will not happen before I leave. Yes, what will happen is all the comments are part of the record of this meeting. And actually, we have been discussing the idea of maybe we should just go preliminary to the board or not. We haven't decided that. Not for action, just for discussion. So, because the board may have very different ideas from our ideas too. And then all of that gets compiled, and then the process began again for action. And at that point, there will be a recommendation from the open space to the board of supervisors about what ideas keep in the plan and what ideas do not make it into the plan. And then we tell the board of supervisors, and you'll have the opportunity again to do and undo.
So are you looking for having this done by summer? Are you looking 2 years?
No, we think that the entire process will probably be done sometime around January or maybe earlier of 2015. It depends again how much issues we get. And I know that Donna believes that it seems that their documents, remember, this covers, well, like Maurice says, either 6,000 acres or 5,200 acres, one or the other. And so therefore, some of the issues that you are hearing tonight are specifically to Mexican Dam and that property. When we talk about the properties that we call the Carson River Canyon, the properties that we purchased from Mr. Seppa and Mr. Bentley, there will be 75 different people in the room with different issues about off-roading and about camping and not camping, about shooting and not shooting, and so on and so forth. So the issues are complex and they're large, and it seems that there's quite a bit of opposition, but it's much simpler than the very first time that we talk about this plan. So it keeps getting easier, the issues getting resolved. And I don't think it's a matter of years, Supervisor McKenna. I think that it will be a matter of months before we can come up with before the department can come up with a clean draft for you to consider for approval. Actually, I'm not moving away, so I will continue to work in this as long as they let me. No, it's not consulting. You cannot consult, no. That's a volunteer.
Mr. Chair, I just happened to notice in here, there's a recommendation, for example, in the Carson River Canyon open space, consider purchase of the Erickson property. And that was one of the things I've been wondering about as I was reading through this plan. Have we pretty much purchased all the property that we want to have in this area, or we can have? Or?
The board of supervisors, from time to time, more often than not, tells me that we have. And we point out to the board some other opportunities and some other properties that complement what we have. The Erickson property is, Lynn, can you sort of point to Bentley all the way to the easternmost side of Bentley? Yeah. In between there and Lyon County line, there's a property. And it's accessed by motorized users coming to the riverbed. So because it's similar to Bentley and Serpine in as much that the landlord is absentee, and everybody uses the land for shooting, for drinking, for partying, and for good things too, for taking pictures, for fishing. But there's no controlled use of the land. So because it's against the county line, that area is accessed primarily from Lyon County as opposed than from Carson City. Furthermore, at some point in time, the road as you know it nowadays is going to be closed by the use of the V&T. So that will even more enforce that the motorized access will be from the east and not from the west. So I mentioned to the board supervisors about, I don't know, every time actually I can, that it may be strategically important to look into purchasing that land, but the conditions are not there. The owner wanted to sell land in Lyon County as well as land in Carson City at the same time, and we cannot do that. The statute doesn't allow for that. So, there have been problems as to why that hasn't happened. There's some other lands on the other side of, you didn't ask me that, but there's some other lands on the other side of Carson City, behind the college, for example, that are in private hands and are used by recreation, and they're full of trails, and some of those lands we should really look into potentially buying at some point in time. There are some things that the board supervisors have pointed out that they would like us to take a look, the program to take a look, like the Kings Canyon Anderson Ranch, for example, in the future. So yeah, there are some things out there, but there are less and less all the time.
Commissioner McKenna.
As long as we're going through the whole plan, one of the things that I've heard, and I just heard it, but you need to talk to the V&T people, is that the way that they build the railroad nowadays, it will use up the entire easement, and there will be no space on there for hiking trails or any other use except for the train. So if you could check into that. The other thing that I'd like to know is, when are you going to be taking names for places like Buzzy's Ranch? Because I think the perfect name for Buzzy's Ranch is Buzzy's Ranch. And I would like just to make sure I don't miss the opportunity to put that in.
That's part of a resolution for naming public, properties and places that the Board of Supervisors has, and that will come to the Open Space Advisory Committee at a time that'll be advertised and agendized, but we'll let you know.
Any other comments? Yep.
Push that red button. I should get used to that, huh? I have actually been kind of what I call intimately involved with this process since about 1993, when Kate Bennett announced that we were going to develop recreation area on the Carson River, and Charlene and Jack and Bill DeSormy were all active members that came in during that meeting, as myself, because I live on the Carson River off the hill a little bit, and with a lot of questions and problems. And so we worked really hard. They'd formed a committee, which this committee does such a good job. If you have controversy, let's gather and talk and put it in a formal way, and it worked very effectively. And Jack and Charlene and Bill were through all that first part, and we put together a plan, and about, I would guess, 90% of that plan has become a reality back in 1996. So it's been 20 years. And if it hadn't have been for the voters of this community voting the sales tax for open space, and the voters voted for Q1, which gave them some money, and then thank goodness Las Vegas was needed property sold, so we got a lot of money from the Southern Nevada Public Land Act. It all came together, and we have one of probably some of the most property on a river going through a city in the country, almost. I mean, there's different examples of that, but they all regret because they lost those opportunities. So now we're in the growing pains. Now that we have it, how are we going to manage it and work? And then from the beginning, number one was protect private property rights. That's what spearheaded that first meeting when this room was packed. And that issue came back today, so that was always our number one concern, that we protect those private property rights. And that put out most of the fire, actually, that was created this vision of what was going to happen on the river. So, and I want to, in this forum tonight, just say that what they did, Carson City hired an open space person that has the people skills and talent and negotiating skills to get a lot of the stuff done, and that's Juan. And I've known Juan for many, many years, and actually I work for Juan sometimes, so there's a bit of a cross there, just like John's trying to get Buzzy. He's doing his lobbying for Buzzies tonight, too, which I think is a cool name, John, actually, Buzzies. It always envisioned this picture of who owned that ranch down there. So I wanted to take this opportunity in front of the public and in front of you guys and just let you know how great of a job Juan did with the Open Space Committee, but he has those skills that it takes to work. When the private landowners are here, just like Charlene just said, they like Juan. He works with those people and creates arrangements for people to negotiate on a friendly scale, and to the benefit of the taxpayers a lot of times too, because they're willing to maybe take some price discussion about how he can pay for those properties and all of the skills that he's learned to use all these different pots of money. So I wanted to say that and thank him, and in the 2 nights he leaves, and I know he'll still volunteer and stick around and help. But I just think that it just shows in the community, if you sit down, you negotiate, you work out a plan back in 1996, and you work towards that, it can happen. And it's happened on a big scale in this community. Now, we'll work on how we manage those lands. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Well, since Juan only left us with one problem, I guess it's not going to be so bad.
That's the only one that surfaced tonight.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so Juan, thanks a bunch for everything you've done. I know I'm pretty new at it, but in the time I've worked with you, you've done obviously some big things, so it's going to be probably some pretty big shoes to fill. So
thank you.
Have a good time, travel lots.
Exercise.
Could I just add, I'm looking through this document, it's really a nice read. I encourage the public to take a look. It's got a lot of pretty pictures in it. It's gorgeous. I think it's really well done, and really appreciate having it, and appreciate all your work, Juan, which is why we have what we have out there.
Well, it's very little regarding this document. It has taken a long time to get here. Most of the ideas in here were produced originally by Mark Kimbrough, and then we sit down with staff and throw half of them away and kept some. And then we kept working and organizing the information in a way that is logical, because it's so complicated. It was really difficult to put one of the answers as to why there's, the discrepancy in the acres is because you have the same property under 2 jurisdictions. So a portion is here and the other portion you count, as something else, or a different category of lands. But Anne took, she is so methodical about these things, and it's so important to her that the document is thought of from the beginning to the end, that she spent all the time, a very large amount of time, just making sure that it follows through. And that's why it reads so well, because it was quite a bit of editing. And then we asked Lynn to, again, take a second look and say, if you don't know anything about this area and you read this, do you get an idea of what is it that we're trying to talk and convey? And in the many pages that it did not, she took it upon herself to change it, to make it work. So that has been the collaboration. Mark and Lynn are the ones to thank. And then the committee have a very critical look at everything we do, and this is no exception. And of course, Mr. McKenna loves it, so he reads it all the time.
Commissioner McKenna.
Speaking of that one, I understand this document in paper form costs about $20.
This document costs about $100 in paper form.
Okay.
However,
How would somebody get it?
Yeah.
For the TV audience, what's the actual URL, or how would they go about getting it so that we don't have to print this thing?
We can give it to them in a CD. We can give them to them in the form of a thumb drive. It just doesn't flow well through the internet. So you can review it and you can download it at your house.
How would I get the CD? How would I get the thumb drive? Do I go to your office?
You want to put the slide again if it's up? Yeah, you can contact our office. It's the Parks and Recreation Department. The telephone is 887-2262. If you do it through email, is abollinger@carson.org or R. Mollendorf, that's much harder, at carson.org, and we'll respond to you. And if you don't have any other alternative and you need a paper copy, we also make a paper copy for you.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks to Ann as well. She wasn't able to join us tonight, but thanks for all her hard work as well. And I think we're moving on. So I guess one question, Roger, I know that was just for discussion, but there's obviously a lot of good conversation. Do you plan on bringing this back to us to review again?
More likely, it's going to come back to you
at
a future date.
Okay, thank you. All right. What about a 5-minute break? All right, 5-minute break. Let's see, we'll return, it's hard to see the clock here. 7:50? We'll go 7:50. Okay. 7.5. 7, yeah. All right, welcome back. We're gonna order pizza soon. So we're at item 3D, and it's to identify the issues, and this is for a possible action, actually, to identify issues and topics in Chapter 6, mainly the indoor facilities of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan for consideration in future amendments to the plan. This is with Roger, Vern, Kurt, and Mitch.
It's all of them.
It's all of us, but Vern L. Cron is going to kick it off and actually cover this topic, and with the assistance of Kurt Meyer and Mitch Ames, and I might chime in once or twice too.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Vern Cron, Park Planner. Let me just kind of quickly go over the staff report for those who might be watching at home. On Tuesday, August 5th, the Parks Recreation Commission meeting, the Commission reviewed Chapter 6, the park facilities that are identified within the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and we went over some issues and topics that the Commission might want to have considered for future amendments at that time. We do this, as the Commission knows, periodically. We want to assess the Master Plan's success at implementation, identify potential new community issues, as well as any future trends that we might want to look at. As the Commission will recall, in June, we had the Recreation Division, the sports and youth folks here. Megan Sirocco and Scott Chapman were here. We talked about a number of different recreational issues. We also have the other side of the Recreation Division here with us tonight, with Kurt for the aquatic facility and with Mitch for the theater. We also talked about in Chapter 6, when we did that, we talked about the indoor facilities as a part of the Chapter 6 in August, and so we're going to be now talking about the indoor facilities in Chapter 6. So, outdoor. Yeah.
Outdoor first. Outdoor we talked about.
Yeah, outdoor we talked about, excuse me. Yes, we talked about the outdoor facilities at the last meeting and the indoor facilities at this one. So it's kind of a blending of the Recreation Division and the indoor facilities that we'll be talking about this evening. As previously mentioned, when we both had Megan and Scott here, as well as Scott Fahrenbrook, the Great Recession impacted not only the Recreation Division, but also the Parks Division. Suffered both significant staffing and budget reductions in the city's 2007-2008 fiscal year, and then another hit the Recreation Division suffered in 2009-10 fiscal year with significant division reorganization. With these staffing reductions and corresponding budget reductions, the Recreation Division has been able to provide only essential services and maintenance. Other amenities, services, and improvement plans were put on hold or dropped and have not been reestablished at this time. As discussed previously, when the youth and recreation, when the youth and sports folks were here, the biggest impact in the Recreation Division was associated with the aquatic facility, and the theater was in the administrative support staff services, which was reduced by 2.5 full-time employees. The loss of this administrative staff not only impacted the youth and sports programs, but had a significant impact on both pool and theater operations. Unfortunately, the administrative staffing reductions within the Recreation Division have never been replaced. Additionally, the community center hourly staffing levels were severely cut by several thousand personnel hours to date. While less than half of the cuts have been restored, the remaining staff has performed very well by continuing to provide high level of service to the community despite the cuts. However, the community center theater facility is no longer polished in appearance, and the existing equipment is increasingly showing its age. This is due to the cuts in hourly staffing and the lack of funding for equipment replacement. The similar is true with the aquatic facility. A lot of deferred maintenance has happened, and we're starting to see that potentially starting to impact the operational aspect of the pool as well. And both Kurt and Mitch are here to talk about the successes that we've had over the past few years, as well as some of the challenges that we face moving forward. So we're going to talk about the aquatic facility first. We flipped a coin and Kurt won. So we're going to go with aquatics first. So he's here to share with us a little bit about the aquatics. The city has a 50-meter pool. It is the envy of many communities. These were the programs that were offered at the time we did the 2006 master plan. And Kurt, if you could kind of update us where we are on those different programs you're working with over there.
Hey, we still have, that's right, I forgot. I apologize. Kurt Meyer. The programs that are up there, we still have most of the programs. Some of them have been renamed and so forth. We have some new programs like paddleboard yoga. We went out and really pushed for some contractors to come in and stuff. We got Wet Sweat is now a deep water fitness class. It's really something that was in the evening we started. It's really expanded during the day. We have a 9 o'clock, just now we have a 9 o'clock class starting when school went back in, and a 10 o'clock class 2 days a week in the morning, and we already are up to about 20 people in each one of those classes. So it's a niche that we're filling. We're also, with the closure of the pools in Reno and things like that, we're facilitating a lot of lap swimmers from South Reno, from Reno itself. We're also having the swim teams from Reno coming down and utilizing our swimming pool. Not to the detriment of our swim team or any lap swimmers as of yet. You know, it gets a little crowded in there, but we try to manage it so everybody can get along. So with that, we are being used. The facility is being used, and some people can attest to that because I see them over there swimming laps. So, any questions on this slide?
All right. As Kurt mentioned, most of the aquatic programs are growing, but we're reaching the limits due to its size of the facility and available times. You know, even back in 2006, there was a waiting list for other summer programs, and the pool is used, as Kurt mentioned, by residents of the surrounding communities. Here's some of the needs that we're talking about related to the improvements over there, if and when money becomes available. Yeah, go ahead.
Ultimately, these were the needs in 2006 when this master plan was put into place. The additional parking has been, I mean, we got the parking next door here, so that has been an asset to the aquatic facility, as long as there's not anything going on over here at the community center, which is also very busy. A larger women's locker room, I mean, that'll probably always be on the agenda, even after we make a larger women's locker room. Family changing rooms. Family changing rooms are also something that would work very well. At times, there's mothers or fathers even that want to facilitate changing their kids, and boy, girl type of thing. We can use the therapy pool locker rooms for that on an occasion if they're not being used, and we do that. Let people use those to help their kids get dressed and so forth. And the last bullet there is really a need, and it's kind of a niche of aquatics that we do not have here in Carson City. If we were ever to expand over there at our facility, we could go to the east where the tennis courts are and so forth. There has been talk of going to the west and using the area that the water slide and the outdoor pool is in, and I would not advise that, because you will have more people than you had in the room tonight times 10. Loving that outdoor swimming pool and all the benefits of lap swimming out there and the kids swimming out there and so forth. So my recommendation would be to go to the east and find another place for maybe push the tennis court someplace else. And is there any questions on this slide?
I know it was back in '06, Kurt, but when you talk about something like that, I know that a lot of families, because our pool is so heavily used, tend to go down to Douglas for recreational activities. But what are we looking at around numbers for if we wanted to implement a leisure pool and whatnot? What kind of cost are we looking at?
I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
yeah, we're talking a multi-million-dollar project.
One of the other things as far as need, oops, I'm sorry.
What's the easement over there to the east of the pool? There's water conservation or something?
Yeah, we have some of the property in Mills Park is encumbered with land water conservation grant funds. When you apply for the land water conservation grant funds and you receive them and you build for, facilities for outdoor recreation, then that land is encumbered for that purpose. It's quite a process to go through and unencumber it and change it to another use. And if you do that, you have to basically dedicate equivalent amount of acreage or property back into outdoor recreation. And I'm not sure, Vern probably has a better handle on that specific site, whether that's in the encumbered area or not. But I know that some of the property particularly on the west end of Mills Park is encumbered, and that's problems we ran into when we were looking at building a recreation center over in this end.
Yeah, I do not believe that the actual tennis courts are encumbered. I think they were specifically left out of that encumbrance, but anything to the east and to the north of the tennis courts is. Yeah. So there are some challenges with that. If this leisure pool were to stay, say for example, not enclosed and was just an outdoor summertime kind of facility, that probably would fly because it's outdoor recreation. But when you enclose it, I think there might be some issues with that. Again, we'd have to have those conversations, but with the folks that be. But I would really like to see this leisure pool being a year-round facility, and that then presents potentially the same problem we ran into with the location of the rec center when we were looking at it originally over there.
That also leads to the thought of not concentrating everything in Mills Park and spreading out our recreation facilities.
That's a good point. Many cities our size have more than one aquatics facility. And so it's possible that you could build another, if you got to that point, where this is a great big fat if, in terms of funding, but maybe in the future, maybe it would make sense to build an aquatics facility in another portion of town that might serve other residents, more effectively.
Well, and even going towards the south of town, so that the North Douglas County could use it. We've had a discussion before a long time ago about forming a Parks and Recreation district and moving Parks and Recreation out of Carson City and moving it into the surrounding counties under a different taxing venue and that sort of thing. So if you're going to need a lot of money, then you're going to have to expand your population that uses the facilities.
One of the other things that I had mentioned a little bit in my opening statements on the staff report is some of the deferred maintenance that has happened over the pool is going to be starting to affect operations over there. And I'd like Kurt to share some of those pending upcoming deferred maintenance projects that are staring him in the face pretty hard.
Like we said, this was written in 2006. We had a new facility in 2006, and their concentration was really on a lot of other things as far as indoor recreation. Leisure pool was probably talked about in a community recs facility and so forth, and that was one of the things that we were looking towards, is building a community rec type facility. So, and since then, not having any funding from general fund as far as capital projects, we are in need of some capital repair over there, and one of the first things is the roof on the facility. Over the summer, we were able to get a roofing company in and fix some of the really bad leaks, and it rained a couple times this summer, and they seem to hold, and so we have our fingers crossed for the winter. And as we all know, the construction process over there was less than perfect. And, some of those things are showing their age a little sooner than they probably should. But another thing is the surface of the 50-meter pool. The 50-meter pool is made out of simply white plaster. And that pool was done in summer of 99, for a large swim meet that was scheduled. And we went through a lot of hoops to get that swim meet off the ground while the construction was still underway. And then we covered the facility, the pool, and left it alone. And it's older than the 15 years. So just because of the way it was treated after the swim meet and so forth. So the surface of the pool needs to be redone. And the next thing is there's a tile project on the outdoor facility. And that outdoor swimming pool is the original pool that was built back in '75. We just took the the structure off of it and use the pool. It has been resurfaced several times since then, but the tile line, the freeze tile line, and also the gutter system where the tiles are have not been replaced, and those are the original tiles. And so every year at the beginning of the season, we are finding that we have to repair those pretty extensively, and we need to address that also. So those are the three things, in my opinion, that are the most important. We also have a deck surfacing that we put down, and that is in need of repair also, probably taken up and putting back down. So those are the four things that are things that need to happen over there. But right now we're getting through. We're hosting swim meets, like Vern said earlier. We are the envy of swimmers, lap swimmers, swim teams for many, many miles. People walk into our facility and their jaw just drops and the first thing they say is, how did you do this? You're 58,000 people. How did you make this happen? So we're very lucky, very lucky. So as far as the operation of the facility, anything, does anybody have any questions that I can answer?
Yes, Kirk, first of all, I want to say hello to my swimming ladies that I have been coming. I haven't been able to come in the last couple of months, and I miss them. I think the leader is 88 years old, and there's several people in that age group that are, we're doing exercises and stuff, but, she commented to me about the roof. I think she was involved in question 18, and so she wanted to know why there wasn't money to repair the roof. And that's a question that never occurred to me before. But when they put together that proposition, why didn't they talk about deferred maintenance and put money in for these big capital things that, we need now?
I'll take a stab at that one. As you know, when question 18, quality of life, was passed and enacted, it included that formula of 40% for parks and recreation capital projects for the construction of those, and then 40% for the startup of an open space property for the acquisition of property and the management of the property, which we heard about tonight. And then there was 20% set aside for the maintenance of park and recreation facilities. And, quite frankly, what has happened is what Vern commonly refers to as a Great Recession. During that recession, our sales tax revenues, just dropped. And there has not been enough money in that 20% to provide, those capital project repairs that Kurt referred to, nor was it intended that quality of life, nor was it ever intended that quality of life funds only and solely would be used for the repairs and the capital improvements of those facilities. It was to augment the general fund. Well, the general fund has no more money than the quality of life fund has. And so consequently, just like the state and every other governmental entity that's gone through this recession has had to take those big capital repair projects and set them on the back burner because there's really not many money available for them, and to try to patch it together, baling wire and duct tape to try to keep these things going. And so we're looking at, hopefully that we're in an upswing a little bit in the economy. Things are starting to look a little bit better, and we're seeing sales tax finally exceed the previous year's amounts. And I think we've had a couple months where sales tax has actually even exceeded what was budgeted. So we are starting to see an upswing that we hope that through some mechanism we're going to be able to provide some money to start addressing some of these needs. And we're going to be bringing that back to the Park and Recreation Commission at a future date. I can't remember where we have that agendized. We want to go through a prioritization process with you folks to talk about if we are seeing some extra money, I want to say, surplus funds in question 18, how do we want to spend that? And I'm telling you right up front that I'm going to be a big promoter and of taking care of the maintenance of facilities that we already have. I think that should be our top priority. But we're working towards that. We're trying to see what we can do. Roof might be, it kind of depends, because sometimes you don't know until you get into it, but it could be $150,000. And I think the pool surface that we're talking about close to $100,000 there. About $110,000. We've got a slide that needs to be refurbished, that's probably another $25,000. The pool deck might be another $50,000. I can't remember these numbers offhand, but we're looking at a significant amount of money we need to pour into that facility, as well as the one we're sitting in right now.
I just had a question. I actually just pulled up the budget just to see. Oh, yeah, it's not, but.
What is this?
Yeah. So was the resurfacing, when you were talking about resurfacing the indoor, we're talking about the entire, like the walking surface, right?
No, the pool.
Well, so this says resurfacing 50-meter pool and gutter system. Is that? So it's roughly 117.5 or something. Is that what we're the same?
That means the interior of the tank.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the pool itself.
Yeah, the actual. Okay. So now, were you also referring to redoing the deck surface that you walk on?
Yes.
Okay, and then
That's on the lower end. The roof is probably number one for me. The resurfacing of the large 50-meter tank would be number 2. The tile around the outdoor pool would be number 3, and the resurfacing of the deck that you walk on would be number 4.
And would number 4, would that also include the resurfacing of the locker rooms?
Yes, that's the same surface, so.
Okay. I want to make sure that is included.
But
it definitely, I swim pretty regularly, and I think the locker rooms are definitely noticeable. But there's also big areas out on the main deck that obviously need it as well.
That surface was put on almost 10 years ago, I believe. About 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, and it just, it took in some places and it didn't take in others, and we learned, and the next time a contractor's in there, he won't like me.
So, and is there there's different, I'm sure with materials always evolving, there's different materials you can use, different choices.
Yeah, and different ways to apply it, and the preparation, I think it was something that wasn't prepped as well as it could have been to receive the adhesive, so.
Right, okay.
So when you look at this, and I don't want to keep beating a dead horse here, but when you look at these needs up here on the slide, the leisure pool with 0 depth entry, shallow area for children, spray features and all that. Yeah, we'd love to have all that, but you know what? We got to make sure that the pool we have is going to stay functional and usable.
And the same thing, it goes, we're talking about the MAC right now, but I sure like to be forward thinking about what happened, like before we even build it. What are we doing to ensure that we can take care of it? Because I don't want it to get run down. So not run down the pool is great, but it'd be nice that some of these things could have been fixed just preventatively and not having this discussion, so.
Any other questions?
Moving on to the next slide.
Okay, we're going to shift. We're going to shift over to the theater. So anyway, just Mitchell will be helping me tag team this one as we go through this. As identified in the 2006 master plan, there was a cultural and performing arts section. The cultural, theater, and arts events are popular in Carson City. The survey results show that these events touch more households than any other recreation service. Also came out of the 2006 master plan, more than 60% of those surveys said at least one family member participated in such an event. Participation ranges from 1 to 4 times per year. The creative capital of the 2002 Community Arts Plan should guide the future arts in Carson City. And so one of those components of the art and cultural aspects of this community obviously is the Bob Boldrick Theater. And so Mitch is here tonight to kind of talk with us about its use, to share with you some information about how it's used by the school district, WNC, and other varieties of different groups, not only in the 2006 plan, which what you see there identified on the screen, but kind of how it's evolved or has moved forward from those points. Mitch, go ahead.
We see a lot of different uses. We see everything from dance recitals to full-on professional productions. We see, as you well know, if you've seen some WNC shows, a lot of folks think they're as good, if not better, than Broadway in some ways. The theater is, how would I put this? The theater is similar to what you said about the pool. When people come from outside, they can't believe this community has this resource, and they're just amazed. The resource was built in 1974, and I've seen a few retrofits, mainly behind the walls and things like that, dimming, that sort of thing. And there's still a lot to be done. There was some Question 18 projects that were done, but the full retrofit of the theater was not completed. There was not enough money to do it. So there's still a lot of projects that remain to be done. I think you'll find a lot of folks see it as a great treasure in this area.
When we start talking about the theater, you know, when you start talking about design and some of the uses and maybe possibly inefficient uses, you know, please go ahead and share. Now, these were some of the things that were identified in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan in 2006. Some we've been able to address, others we hadn't. So, Mitch, if you kind of want to roll through those, that'd be awesome.
Yes, we still have loading issues. We have a pretty small loading door to get through. And there are the side wings and such are a little small for a stage of that size. The orchestra pit, it depends on what you want to do. It is, for some large performances, it could be a little small. One of the biggest problems we have is that the cover is not multi-purpose. So there was a cover that was designed that would have allowed you to do stairs, it would have allowed you to do multi-level surfaces, or even add to the seating for particular shows. The parking, we did a little better on the parking thanks to Public Works and a lot of folks in the city. I think that's been very popular. And the sound wall, or lack thereof, to the gym is really prevalent if you try to do say like an event in the gym that has a DJ or a band or anything with a lot of low frequencies to it. It comes right through that wall. So that's something that we try to avoid, is having, say, a dance on one side of the wall and a theater performance that might be quiet on the other, if that makes sense. Futsal seems to be okay, but they don't have a lot of low frequencies that involves hitting the other walls out there. So.
In the 2006 survey, some of the needs that were identified is half of the surveys responded and recognized the need for improvements at the theater. 51% the city should spend additional money at the theater, and 18% were in favor of improvements even if taxes had to be raised. One of the other things that when we went through the master plan, and Donna, you were here, and so I think Chuck was in on that as well, we had the opportunity to brainstorm a little bit here at the theater. Oh, John was too, that's right. Gosh, we just, almost like half of you folks were here through the first go around. But anyway, we had some opportunities to do some brainstorming. And these were some of the things that kind of floated up in the 2006 master plan. And Mitch, if you want to kind of run us through those, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Well, staging and scene shop would be helpful to a lot of the groups that use it. They would not have to be on, they would not have to assemble their set as much on the stage, and that would add to some efficiencies. However, that has to come at a cost of square footage somewhere else in the theater. Everything is a trade-off as you're looking at it. A black box theater, banquet event rooms, there's a need for larger spaces than what this room is. For quite a few events, there's a lot of events that we can't accommodate in this room, and some that the gym is just too big for. So that's what that was looking at that time. When they were looking at also, okay, you have the board meeting. Can you make that a little more usable for the weekends when the board is not in session? And that's where those things came from in those designs, if that makes sense. Or actually, not designs, they were more just thoughts.
So the next thing is after you get done with brainstormings, you start looking at needs. And that's one of the things that, that I know staff has concerns about, Mitch in particular. And where would some of that expansion be and what would be contingent upon those possible improving on the facility? Again, these come out of the 2006 master plan, and these are some ideas. Yes, we did. That's one. That's actually, cross out the reader board. But Mitch, if you want to kind of run through those again, just adding in what your thoughts as far as the needs go.
Well, on the first one, the expansion of the existing gym, that was more when they were looking at the comprehensive recreation center. And you can see the next one was recreation center as well. The other improvements were trying to figure out how to make that theater a little easier to get into with larger sets and things like that. And so one possibility was if you were building that black box or something, would you be able to take this room here and have it become a loading area? But as you can see, as the campus changes, that's going to be a little more problematic now that we have the parking lot over here. The facility, it's possible that it was constructed to add the balcony. At least it was a thought in there. That's why the foyers are shaped the way they are. The structure, you would have to go back and analyze, is it really there to accommodate the addition of a balcony, that sort of thing. So that would still take a lot of research and design. Sculpture garden and plaza, public art is very desirable in a community. What do we have here? We did get the parking, so we got that one, and we got the sign, so we got two of it.
One of the other things that we talked about as far as needs go, it's important that the theater remain downtown for the central community's access and downtown vitality. However, if improvements are not possible, the city may consider some other options with that. Some of these came out of the brainstorming session of the 2006 master plan. Working with neighboring businesses to provide additional parking. That certainly is a need we still currently have. Developing meeting space west of the community center. Although now with the parking lot there, I'm not sure that's going to be really viable. Go ahead.
The brick and the Ormsby room in the Sheriff's Department has helped with that as well.
Oh, it does. It has taken pressure off of us. That's very true. Thank you, Mitch. Just like what Mitch said, using other available city spaces, jointly developing a new theater with the school district or with WNC might be an opportunity to do that. Partnering with neighboring counties, the state or corporate sponsors for a regional theater facility. That could be something that could be quite interesting to explore as time goes on. And of course, the Brewery Arts Center. Yes, go ahead.
Before you leave the theater, or are you leaving the theater?
No, we aren't leaving the theater. We'll be talking about maybe some possible collaborative efforts with the Brewery Arts Center. But go ahead, ask your question now, Donna.
Okay, as I understand it, part of the 1/8 cents has money for theater improvements.
Correct.
I don't know where that came from, but there it is, so good. What are they?
Well, what are the improvements or what is the money? Okay. Well, in the funding plan for the 1/8 cent sales tax, there's been $500,000 earmarked towards improvements to the community center. We don't know what those improvements are going to consist of yet. I don't have the timeline right now of the 1/8 cent sales tax projects in front of me, but I think we're looking at going into a public process of trying to determine what are the needs and prioritize the needs for the improvements for this facility. I think we're looking at starting that next spring, I think. Or maybe it's even this fall.
No, it's not this fall.
It must be next spring.
It's next spring, I believe.
So what we'll do is similar to what we did tonight with the open space management plan. We'll conduct some public hearings, meet with stakeholders, have meetings open to the general public as well to get their input on what needs to be done. As you know, we've got stakeholders such as WNC Theater that use this facility very heavily. They've got ideas of what they'd like to see, but then, maybe their ideas of improvements here may conflict with somebody else's ideas too. So we want to get all those out on the table and talk about them and prioritize them. That's all going to come back to you folks too as well. And and then eventually to the board, for approval.
Raj, I have a question about the WNC Theater. So obviously, we're talking like state versus city or whatever. So how does that work as far as, are they mainly just paying rent?
Yeah, they are. So we don't think of state versus city. We see it as state and city collaborating,
Okay.
But, and that's kind of one of the reasons why the Brewery Arts Center is up here too. And as you know, we've got a joint use agreement with the school district. So they heavily use our facilities. So they're a stakeholder too as well in our, for our theater and the community center.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that, when you start talking about the theater, the Brewery Arts Center comes up because they do have two theaters over there. Mitch, do you know exactly? I don't know exactly what they have. They've got some theaters, a black box.
They have a black box and they have a proscenium theater, but I can't remember the
performance hall.
Performance hall, but I can't remember the seat counts on those.
The seat capacity, I think, for the performing arts theater, I think, is just a little over 200. And I think the black box is maybe around 100. I'm just.
Yeah, thank you. And the whole idea behind it is that the Brewery Arts Center provides not only these other opportunities for the black box and for the performance hall, but there's classrooms, meeting rooms, an art gallery, an artisan store, a bistro. I mean, they really have an interesting little complex campus that they're trying to develop. And so it's real interesting that there might be some collaborative efforts between them and us regarding theaters. Is that there has been some at least discussions at staff level and with some of the Brewery Arts Center staff and board of directors that sometimes when you have a small performance that ties up the theater here, is that the most effective use of space? Whereas some way we could maybe move them over to the black box or over to the performance hall, and that opens up the venue for a larger event here. So I think there's some real collaborative efforts. We've also just, and it's a nonprofit, as I recall. And, it's funded through membership grants, donations, and rental fees. The Brewery Arts Master Plan calls for construction of an additional 60,000 square foot at the complex itself, and includes possibly a 20,000 square foot theater. They also the city may consider partnering with the back expansion to meet demand for additional theater and performance usage. One of the other things, as we've talked about previously, is that when you talk about neighborhood, if we could work with them on their campus, it provides a possibility of an opportunity for that campus to become one of our little neighborhood park potential. So there's not only the opportunity, not only with the theater, providing some other joint use or some collaborative efforts, but also working on the park side for it as well. Also, when you start talking about the Brewery Arts Center, you also have to talk about amphitheaters, because part of their campus plan is to have an amphitheater. But we do have amphitheaters in town. We have the amphitheater at the Fireman's Memorial, although that really doesn't necessarily, I don't think, is a really good venue for a performance. It's a nice memorial and a nice opportunity to have when people want to have an event there, but not necessarily from a theatrical point of view. The Marv Texera Pavilion, at both ends of Mills Park, there's a small amphitheater at the Legislative Mall. 54% of those surveyed in 2006 said it would be important for the city to add an amphitheater to the mix in the community. An amphitheater would need to be located either in a central location or an exceptional natural setting free of lights and noise. I think people have in mind something similar to the amphitheater up at Bartley Ranch Park. That's the Hawkins Theater. If you've had an opportunity to ever go up and see a performance there, it's an amazing little facility. And of course, other sites that we talked about at the time would be WNC, John D. Winters, maybe Silver Saddle Ranches, maybe offer these opportunities for that. Art in the community, kind of following along those same ideas of art and culture in the community. This was put into the master plan. I know the Carson City Cultural Commission is looking at trying to work in this venue. They see that as really an important role that they have. We see that also as something that for parks or public spaces is very important as well within the community. Art in public places can impact a community by increasing community identity, improving historical awareness, adding interest to public places, generating awareness of the power of art to express ideas and emotions. And funding for the public art has been included as percentage of construction project costs in many communities. So any questions to this point? We'll run through the implementation strategies and we'll start those unless there's somebody has a question related to the theater, the Brewery Arts Center, or arts and culture in general.
Yes, just somehow or another, the Cultural Arts Commission should be mentioned, it seems to me, in this update, so people know they exist. And maybe in saying, working with, conjunction with Parks and Rec Commission. So when you start looking at some of these ideas and projects, assumably you want to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll go through these. Some of these implementation strategies we've been able to address. Some of them are still on the to-do list, as we've talked about before, and some of these may not exactly be, a strong component at this point as it may have been back in 2006, but let's run through them quickly. To meet urgent needs, conduct a study of locations and composition cost for a new comprehensive recreation center. Proceed with design as funding permits. As the Commission knows, that's underway with the rec center as we talked about earlier today. Refine the joint use agreement with the school district for ongoing shared use of school facilities to maintain current uses as long as possible. Roger, did you possibly want to just talk a little bit about this? Is that it seems to be working for us?
Well, it does work. We have a very, I guess, advantageous or lucrative agreement with the school district where we share facilities. And, sometimes I think we lose sight of how successful that agreement has been. For instance, Vern and I were talking about this today, and Mitch was in the conversation as well, that, many other cities and localities, a high school will have its own theater. The college would have its own theater. I can just tell you that the community I came from previous to here, the Green River Rock Springs area, the college had 2 theaters. They had a campus in each community. The brand new high school in Green River had a beautiful theater, and the city had a theater. Well, that's in a community of 40,000 people with all those theaters. The city had a brand new rec center with a nice pool, and the high school, the new high school in Green River right now is building a competitive pool. So there's a lot of double dipping, and so by having this joint use agreement, we've really saved this community, lots of monies by not duplicating efforts in providing facilities. And so I think in that terms has been very successful. Now, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to look at this and see if we can fine tune some areas. For instance, when the high school is using our theater for a production, or for some type of a program or event, it requires quite a bit of our staff time to assist them in that process. At the same time, when we're using their facilities, again, they have some cost involved too in terms of, providing some kind of a supervision or some people involved at the site. But I think their probably cost is less than what we're doing, because a lot of times we're doing sound and lights and providing other type of assistance for them. So, we've kicked around the idea, and actually Mitch has implemented a couple times, talking to the school district about if you're having an event here that you're going to be charging a fee for, would it make sense to implement a per seat surcharge, maybe $1 extra per seat or per seat sold, so that it kind of offsets our cost for providing assistance for the program. And we've done that a couple times with some success. Also a little bit of resistance, but it seems to work pretty good. And I think those are kind of issues that we need to talk about, some ideas that we need to talk about with the school district in more depth, and maybe they'll have other ideas, from our side, what we can do to help them. As we talk about the aquatic facility, as I mentioned, we have one aquatic facility in this community. The school district also uses it as their competitive high school swim meets too. And so, maybe there's an opportunity we can do a little cost sharing, with that. But that pendulum swings both ways, so if we're going to be trying to get some money from the school district, they may want to get some money for us in our use of their facilities as well. But I think basically it's been a very advantageous joint use agreement. The idea I think that we've been toying around also is, can we expand this to the college, this agreement? And maybe with the Brewery Arts Center. Vern brought up a very good example of having a production in our theater that maybe only 100 or 150 people, are going to go use it. It's been like that on a regular basis. Well, maybe it would make sense to move that to the Brewery Arts Center, and that they would honor our joint use agreement with the school district. Another example is Mitch, and I don't know if he still does it, but they used to create a little black box theater on the back of the stage for some high school productions. And that's fairly labor intensive by our people to put this black box theater together for them. Maybe it'd make more sense if the black box theater at the Brewery Arts Center was available, that we would direct that production to the Brewery Arts Center where the facility already exists. So those are the kind of things that we've been exploring and need to explore in more depth. You want to add anything to that, Mitch?
Well, it was really just looking at when we proposed it that we would provide in-kind services to the brewery to do a larger event. And so it was a win-win for, as we thought, for the school district, the brewery, and ourselves. We haven't been able to make that happen yet, but we're still trying for that goal. We also do, before I forget, we do some things with Silver State Charter School as well. So we try to reach out to all of the groups in town.
Master plan was created before Silver State Charter was in existence.
And right now what we do with Silver State is we use their buses for the child enrichment programs in the summer. So when they take their outings to Reno and other places, and we have some equipment that we were able to install in their theater, and they use it in their performing arts center. And it's worked out rather well, and we've had some of the kids come in and work with us, and we're hoping to expand those programs as we can. A long time ago, we had what we called a student tech program, and that was really kind of neat because the students would get paid, folks would have a little less cost for their technical support, but it seemed to kind of wane a little bit, and it hasn't come back yet, but hopefully that will happen again.
This implementation strategy, I think, still has promise, especially as we start looking at the development of the community center and some of the needs we talked about at the aquatic facility. Develop plans for improvements to the aquatic facility and community center gym to allow them to function as a single limited recreation center. Explore ways to link the two facilities. I thought that still has some interesting potential in that. Let's see, improvements to the city facilities, especially the theater, will greatly improve the efficiency and effectiveness of using the facility and increase the number of quality events being able to present, events able to be presented there. One of the other things too that I think we kind of skipped over with Mitch is his pending projects and some of the ones that he sees. And I want to give him a shot at that. We kind of did that with Kurt, and I didn't get really a chance to do that with Mitch as far as your current needs. With lighting and some of the other things. And so let me kind of rewind this a little bit and have you go ahead and talk a little bit about the same kind of projects that are important for you.
Well, ours, as you know, this is a full facility. It's not just theater. We also have the gymnasium stuff. And the gymnasium was built in 1969, has the 1969 floor in it. That could really use a replacement coming back to the theater. Equipment doesn't last forever. And so the sound system is going to be in need of replacement, and we want to replace that before it fails. Having it fail in a performance is not really where we want to be. We need to complete some of the projects were done. The acoustics were analyzed, and there was a design for it, but that was one of the things that could not be done in the original retrofit project. The seats, as many would like to see done, where we do have dollars to have the seats done, but we're holding on to that while we're waiting to find out what aspects would be designed with the potential $500,000, because it doesn't make sense to put the new seats in and then tear out things over the top of them, if that makes sense. So we're trying to limp along as we can. We're kind of in a little bit of a limbo right now, and just trying to maintain what we have at the current level.
Yeah, thank you, Mitch. Another one of the implementation strategies, commission a schematic architectural feasibility cost study to determine the true potential and practicality of the reuse of the community center, similar to what we're talking about earlier. Consider improvements both with and without a recreation center to allow the relocation of some facilities. Evaluate the potential to convert existing exercise room into a dressing or green room. Expand the stage production area by moving the existing gym westward or replacing it elsewhere. Create loading docks, scene shops, storage areas servicing existing and proposed theater spaces. Create a black box theater, city council chambers, banquet evening meeting rooms. Some of the other things continuing, evaluate the potential to create an enhanced catering kitchen, television production facilities, and additional restroom facilities serving all spaces. If the gym conversion is not possible, demolish existing small stage dressing rooms and convert into a tall open space for significantly improved staging area. Create improved loading capabilities, remove the theater seating rake, or improve the commuter. Man, I'm trying to move along quickly, but I'm stumbling over myself. Improve a theater seating rake. Now, I didn't know what a rake was, and so do you know what a rake is, a theater rake? There you go. Yeah, the floor. Yeah, I did not know that. Rich had to inform me of that today. Remodel large stage dressing room for enhanced flow and costume support, and improve parking facilities, which we have. One of the things too, just I might add at this particular point, is that with the east-west transmission line coming across the park, we are going to be picking up probably another 10 or 12 spaces because we're rearranging some of the parking on Oxaby Loop, not only to facilitate additional parking here. We're picking up, I think, 4 or 5 spaces in the existing parking lot with some restriping. So we're probably going to pick up about a dozen parking spaces if we're lucky. Also, if we do move forward with the universally accessible handicap project, those additional parking spaces on the Oxaby Loop will help facilitate that as well. So we're trying to find parking anywhere we can for this facility. Some of the other things, implement appropriate recommendations of feasibility study as decision is made about additional recreation center development. Continue collaborative efforts with the BAC and WNC to fulfill culture facility needs. Utilize the creative capital plan to determine future direction for cultural and performing arts. Research and prepare a Carson's Arts program to be funded through CIP or general obligation bond funds. Propose the program to the Board of Supervisors. The Cultural Commission is working on that. And pursuing an outdoor amphitheater and its costs with potential partners, WNC, BLM, corporate sponsors, or private donors. So those quickly were the implementation strategies for our indoor facilities here at the community center and the aquatic facility. So if you have any questions, we could certainly answer those at this time. And I want to make sure, Mitch, did we cover everything for you on your side?
I think so.
You got, okay. So I think we're ready for questions, if you have some.
Me? Okay. John? Okay. I just wanted to comment on these implementation strategies because I think many of them are repetitive and duplicative. I think you only need to say once, let's work with BAC and the schools. So I think we could shorten the list if someone wanted to go through them. Of course, happy to say that some of them have been done too. But it just seems like, you know, going through these tonight, things have been said more than once. Got it already.
I think just to support some of what Mitch said, you know, for a long time I've been helping put shows on here through local dance studios, WNC, whatnot. And what we find here is it is a very highly used facility. And we have helped, and we've also taken part in bringing props in and trying to get them through these low doors. You know, things, you wind up hitting jams, you wind up hitting hinges. When you're trying to bring them in the back, you're catching curtains. And there's a lot of costs associated with trying to do a lot in a tight area that aren't big dollar items, any one by themselves, but it's wear and tear that the theater and the community center as a whole really absorbs. And so I don't think I'm telling anybody anything new, but when we're looking at, you know, where the dollars need to go, you know, looking at sustainability and whatnot from those avenues, I think is important for the longevity of a highly used facility like this.
Any other questions? I just had a couple, Commissioner Curtis kind of spoke of it, but a couple terms like wet sweat was one that I don't know how well that's used. If I was to recommend maybe taking something out of there, maybe pulling the name out because it could just be fitness, water aerobics, whatever. Joint use, you mentioned the BAC, maybe kind of something, it might be appropriate also to put Boys and Girls Club in there, seeing that that's going to be part of the MAC. So maybe it's not quite theater, but it's still, I think, is as a whole a recreation facility. And yeah, a couple of the check marks, removing the west side parking lot and the sign seem appropriate. But now you've mentioned before, I think we talked about it last meeting, but at the very end, we're going to bring everything back. So is it necessary right now for our possible action to try to approve this? Or my feeling was the last time we said maybe we won't quite approve it, but we're going to maybe state some of these things and then we'll be able to bring them back to the table.
Yeah, the intent that we're trying to do is to identify what the commission wants to bring back to the table. If like at the last meeting, there was nothing, no action was taken on that particular chapter or that particular section of the chapter. So staff won't be bringing back any of those things for rediscussion necessarily. It's only what the commission has taken action on that we'll bring back and discuss. It's kind of like filling that bucket. I keep using the analogy. What are we putting into the bucket that we want to bring back and discuss a little bit later? So if there is something that the commission would like to recommend as going into the bucket, that would be great to have a motion on that, and then that we can discuss that once we see the whole, once we pull everything out of the bucket, we can take a look at what we want to revisit.
Could I go back to something you just said, Brett, too? Just I want to make clear that the wet sweat program, we no longer have that program. Now it's called, I think, deep water aerobics. So it's not termed wet sweat anymore.
So yeah, I guess I was just thinking like in general for, I guess if you want to call it a procedure or a plan, rather than having a, I guess I'll call it like a
specific name?
Yeah, specific name, just something more generic, yeah. So not have a trade name, so to speak.
Okay, I just understood what you said.
That makes sense.
Obviously, not a big deal. I just happen to see it, so I thought if I get a chance to update something. This is
it. Clear Creek Children's Camp no longer exists, right?
Right, that's correct.
So there's several mentions of it in here. It needs to be removed.
Yeah.
So does somebody have a motion?
I think John should.
I don't know that we put you on the spot. Did we bring up anything new that wasn't already on here?
I don't think we brought up anything new, just some minor corrections of things that maybe we could, I guess, fix.
Well, it just depends on how far we want to go in this. I mean, there is the Cultural Arts Commission now, and I think they have a role to play in this plan. And some things have changed that should be mentioned in here, like Brewery Arts has a plan now for, making their campus bigger, but I just don't know. No, you literally can go through here page by page, and I was started with 6.7.1 indoor basketball, volleyball. I'm sure all those numbers have changed in terms of the number of participants, et cetera. So do we just leave it alone, or are we going to try to update it, or what? I know I keep asking that, and it sounds like it's just if something really struck us, like, it's something we've got to do right now, or there's no way it's going to happen, get rid of it.
You bring up the point about the numbers and participation. I don't think you want to necessarily update the master plan by changing that, because that's going to change every year to some degree. So, but probably, the significant ones are the Cultural Commission. That was not visualized back during that time. And maybe some comment towards, the Cultural Commission it will now be responsible for some of these areas, in the arts component of this chapter might be, worthwhile adding to it.
Is foosball in here?
Futsal? No.
No, that's huge.
No. And you're right. And we talked about that today when we met. Futsal is probably our biggest single program now, largest single program, and it's not mentioned in there. And so that was an activity, we're talking about the facility was heavily used to the point of bursting at the seams in 2006. Well, now we've added futsal to it.
Don't forget roller derby.
And we've got roller derby in there, and the other thing we didn't have was, we only had, I think, at the time, maybe 1 or 2 contracted classes.
We have a lot more now.
And now we have a lot of contracted classes, out of this facility. So there has been a lot of changes since 2006.
So I guess a question I had, because I don't have anything major, what you covered here, what I call it, like you said, it's really updating who the stakeholders are, some of the uses and whatnot. But I mean, even if you didn't change that kind of stuff, it's part of the intent of the plan. I don't know that it would be a big step to get there, and I don't know that you have to formalize it with an official change.
Yeah, I guess maybe if you think that the overall tone or the overall direction and that is given in the master plan, it still applies. Maybe it doesn't need to be changed simply because another commission now has arrived, and other programs have been implemented, and other programs have gone away. Because keep in mind that if we do amend the master plan, it's a pretty, involved process to go through. I think we have to go back to the planning commission too, and to the board of supervisors. And so if you're just satisfied with the overall direction that's given, maybe that's how, in terms, you should be thinking of, because some of this is going to change again in a year from now.
But any way that the notes from the meetings could be summarized and appended to this?
Well, I've been actually thinking about that, so you bring up a good question, Donna, because I know that when we started down this road, the intent behind it was to really examine this and then go forward with a master plan amendment. That was kind of the thoughts that we kind of discussed. And the more and more as we've examined the plan, which I think has been very helpful to the commission and to the public, I think the process and what we've done, I think, has been great. But maybe it's more of a report back to the board versus a request to amend the master plan. And maybe it's something to the effect, I'm kind of freewheeling here, I'm sorry, I've just been thinking about this. But Roger hasn't heard this, so if he doesn't like it, you can say, okay, Vern, be quiet. Then he can kick me under the table. But I've been kind of freewheeling here on this a little. And maybe it's a report back to the board and to the planning commission, say that, we've spent the past year going through the plans, and even though some of the data has changed, and even though some of the programs have kind of come and gone, and we've had impacts because of the recession, the overall master plan is a pretty holistic document and still basically applies. And we don't, and we capture this we capture it for the board to say, here are the changes, or here are the things that we've said, here are the motions, and we don't recommend any changes at this time. However, when you guys get ready to amend the master plans again, here's a snapshot in time, and here's what we found, and we'd like you to look at these things when you move forward, when you want to do it holistically. Does that make sense? I mean, that's another option, another alternative than just trying to amend the master plan and go through this whole document. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think along with that would be a list of the changes. In other words, the things that we are thinking of doing, like with the Texera Pavilion, there's been discussion of changing its use. And, but there's a lot of things that we have done too, that we made changes on, absolute. And so just give them a list.
And if you noticed, in a lot of the discussions about the future of the community center is really hinges on and is dependent upon the success of what they refer to as a recreation center, and which was now the MAC. If the MAC took all the programs out of here, I mean, that's not going to happen. But if it did take all the programs out of it, if they all shifted over to the MAC, well, then you would have you would implement different improvements or reuse this facility in a different way than it would be if it only took part of them out. And so, even in the master plan, it suggests waiting to see what the effect on the rec center has on this facility. So, I think Vern has come up with a pretty good idea, actually. And I think what you're saying, Donna, if you could add those things that have been completed to that, and then maybe we're a few years away from seeing what kind of effect the MAC has on this facility too.
Sure, I feel definitely, I'm being optimistic seeing the MAC's getting built. So if it's built, this could be totally different. At least there's going to be a 6.7 or whatever it is. And it's going to probably need to be updated at that point. Yeah. And then obviously everything else that's impacted by it will have to be reviewed. So I'm ready to make a motion. I move to identify no issues and/or topics in Chapter 6, which is the indoor facilities of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan for consideration in future amendments to the plan.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
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 No nays.
No nays.
All right. Thank you. And, one thing, so part of this, if we could you guys kind of put it on your list at the end? When is it, December, when we're through everything? Maybe by January, February, to kind of go through and itemize through it from all the minutes, like maybe comments, ideas, whatever we had, so that we could at least have our own kind of report. I know for me, it's valuable to have gone through it because I have been on the board almost 3 years, and it's the first time we've really looked at it. Yeah. So even if we don't necessarily recommend or have change, we can have notes of what the items that we felt were either good, changed, bad, whatever they were. So.
And that's fine. The hope right now is, if you look at your future agenda items, we're hoping chapters 7 and 8 are small chapters. I think there's some meaty stuff in them, but they're smaller chapters. So we're going to try to combine chapters 7 and 8 in October to go through those, and then either in November or December, depending on the other agenda items at the time, maybe we can come back with that, with what we're talking about, is maybe a report back to the commission of what kind of transpired this past year, and then that would be moved on. I think it'd be important to move that onto the Planning Commission as well. Not only the board, but I think if we go that route, I still think it would be nice for the Planning Commission to see that we've gone through this, and that, here are some things that have been successful. Now, one of the things that does happen is that Lee Plemmel every year goes through the master plan, the citywide master plan, and he gets input from us, from Parks and Rec, Open Space. So it's a little different than what we're proposing, but they are familiar with some of the issues that are in our master plan as well. So I think it would be good to just give them kind of the same report we're giving to the board. It's just another thought in this idea. So.
just realized I made the motion, but I didn't ask for public comment. Do we have public comment?
No,
We had
says
no
the public.
Do we need to do that again, or we're safe? All right. All right. Looks like we're moving on to item 4, which is staff updates.
Could I take one opportunity real quick?
Okay.
I just wanted to publicly really thank Eric Klug and my staff for their dedication that we've been able to provide services to the community. And a lot of folks haven't really noticed much of a difference. But that really goes to my staff. And I just wanted to let you know what they've done for this community.
Just real quick, I would add to that. Every time I'm here doing stuff, your staff's here, way earlier than any of us here, obviously. When we're gone, they're still here. And while we're here, they're constantly pitching in where they need to make sure everything goes smooth. So I think your staff does an amazing job.
Well, I'm gonna add to the comment a little bit. We're probably stretching things in terms of being off topic, but earlier when we were talking about the fair, the fellow who was identified as a sound man for Merle Haggard came up to me and he said that, he goes, I want to tell you, he goes, I work with a lot of groups and he goes, but this crew you have that Mitch is in charge of is the best crew I've ever worked with. This is a guy that's been around and been in a lot of fairs and a lot of, put on a lot of shows, and he says it's the best crew he's ever worked with.
Mitch, you could be making a lot more money.
Well, I want to go home sometime tonight, but I'd like to just say that as far as the staff goes over the last 6 years with what we've had, I'm impressed with the city staff, Public Works, helping you guys out. You guys have squeezed blood out of turnips, as far as I'm concerned, to keep our parks, our community center, and get the grants and stuff that you've got for our parks and trails and everything else. I think our entire Parks and Recreation staff has done an excellent job in the last 6-7 years that I've been around.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see, staff updates, A would be update on John D. Winters Centennial Park, the Upper Sports Complex ADA Improvements Project, which is burned.
Yes, just real quick, with the assistance of Public Works, the engineers over there put together a plan that I put in your packet. It's a response to a grant that we got. We went out and sought $75,000 worth of monies from the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for ADA improvements up at Centennial. When the original ball field was built and the ADA striping that you would see up at the John D. Winters Centennial Park Upper Complex does not meet current ADA standards. Actually, in some cases, that ramp into the facility, if you've been up there, that ramp into the facility is very, very steep and very, very dangerous. And so we felt that it was important, since it is one of our stronger economic generators in this community, that we really needed to address handicapped and disability access issues to the facility. So with this grant, we've been able to put together a design that provides not only for ADA parking and the grades that are necessary to get us into the park, so we meet all compliance associated with our ADA access. Also, we have some opportunities possibly to get rid of some of the dust and blowing dirt up there under the picnic shelters, possibly pouring concrete under the picnic shelters, and some other areas that would help reduce not only the wind, the dust blowing around out there, but even give better access to folks in wheelchair or with walkers who might want to come up and watch their children play. So anyway, we're real excited about that. We are out to bid on it right now. I believe if all goes well, we'll be at the Board of Supervisors, I think at the October 16th meeting for award, and we'll start construction soon thereafter. So we're going to start, the plan right now is, if things go well, to start construction right after the last tournament in October, which I believe is October 20th. up there. So we're going to get the idea is to get the contractor in there as fast as we can and get these improvements done so it doesn't impact the tournament season in the summer or the recreational seasons in the spring and in the fall. So we're trying to do this as effectively and as quickly as we can. So anyway, we're excited about that opportunity that we've got through Land and Water. I think is a great opportunity to address a need that is really, at least in my mind, very apparent up there to take care of. I'm done.
Do we have any comments? Any public comments? All right. Thanks, Vern. Let's see, members' announcements and requests for information. Commissioner Kiever.
I don't know if I like that.
I knew it.
All right. Hey, Roger. All right. Treadway Park. I noticed we had 3 cottonwoods down this week. So I have 3 questions. What happened to them? Why are they down? 2, are they going to be replaced? If so, by what? And then 3, we've discussed this before. What happens to the wood? In state service, when a tree is cut down, the wood is donated to the Railroad Museum to fuel the locomotives. So does the city do something similar, or do we sell the firewood as a revenue generator? No? Just
No.
no. Okay.
But you know what? That is something we can definitely look at. That's not a bad idea of looking at donating that wood for the railroad
They would
museum.
appreciate it.
Well, I'll check into that.
Okay. So what did happen to the trees?
Well, you know what? I don't know. And the reason, well, good. And the reason I don't know is I just got back today. I was out of town for 2 weeks, but I'll check into it and find out.
But I did notice whoever was cutting them down, I presume it's Public Works.
Yeah.
They did a great job of fencing off, if you will, the area and
Yeah.
getting the wood out of there and making sure that the park was usable.
Yeah. The Public Works does our heavy tree removal and tree pruning work.
I did notice that one of the cottonwoods, it was rotting from the inside out.
Well, and that's typically what happens with cottonwood trees. They're not a very long-lived tree, and they're very susceptible to rot. And typically what happens is they do rot from the inside out, and then you get some high winds, and it just topples the trees, or large limbs come down, so.
Will we replace them, or are we going to
Yeah,
just?
we'll be replacing the trees.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes.
We're fishing.
Yeah, well, let's stay a while longer. On September 9th, Cassie, which is the group that's helping build the animal shelter, is putting on a K9 run at Riverside Park. Registration is 8 o'clock. And I'm sorry, I don't have a flyer, so I can't tell you the rest of the details, but I'm sure there'll be flyers around and articles in the paper. And on September 27th, the Partnership Carson City has its biannual pickup of prescription drugs, and they have them at the Save-On stores and at Smith's on that Saturday morning. You can bring them by, and we'll dump them for you. Oh, and I should mention, too, I was going to mention while Kirk was here, we have the Pooch Plunge, which is coming up, I think, the 27th. So that happens every year. Bring your animals, just make sure you can prove that they have shots up to date, and not your animals, actually dogs. I don't think cats would do well in this. But anyway, they have ladders and stuff, so the dogs can get in and out of the pool, and they come in all sizes. And
Is there a cost for that, Donna?
I think there is, but I can't tell you what it is. It's a fundraiser, so, but it's not very much.
Anything else? So I had one, there's a Kiwanis race. It's a run for pancreatic cancer that's on Saturday, September 20th. I believe it's at Empire Ranch, and I don't have an exact address, but it's on active.com. So if you look it up for the run for pancreatic cancer, you could find it there. There's also, I think, Carson area runners like through the Tall Mountain Milers as well. Probably has links
I'm sure.
on social media and then also probably the website. Anything else? Do we have a report from the school board liaison?
School's back in session. That was my joke last year, so it's getting old, I think. Right now, today, there's 48 more students enrolled in the school district than last year, which, if you do the math, is 19 additional families. So optimistically speaking, the revenue is rolling in, Vern. This isn't the official count day, but it doesn't impact Parks and Rec, but we have a big surge of primary grade students, mostly kindergarten. We're bulging at the seams right now.
Good.
Which is, I think potentially some good news.
Yeah, get them from the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Any future agenda items? We got nothing? Public comment? I think we're all finished. Possible action for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.